Make sure this is on. I think I'm on. At least I hope I'm on now. Doesn't seem to be having the usual connection issues, so fingers crossed. That's good. As always, let me know if I'm visible and audible. But yeah, I know this was a bit impromptu, but I've been trying to get a live stream in for some time. So unfortunately, tonight will probably be a bit shorter than the usual marathon sessions. But figured some stream time is better than no stream time at all. So especially with it coming up to the end of the year, there's less time to get stuff in. Let's see, get some folks in here. Hi, Melinda's here. How you doing? Listening at work. Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah, well, at least you can be here in spirit and listen and maybe sneak a comment here and there when they're not looking. Ronald's here. Hey, man. Brian, hello, sir. Yes, season's greetings to everyone. As always, let me know and that I can make sure that I'm visible and audible because I didn't have connections issues this time. So I'm always expecting something else to pop up and go wrong and me not realize it. So, so again, for those just popping in, this is going to be probably a little bit on the shorter side because it's a bit more impromptu, but there was just too much to talk about. And, while I have the time with it getting to the end of December and the holidays, I was like, well, I better use this time while I have it. So anyway, I've got literally a ton of new pickups and things. So I figured, no, unfortunately it's not ginger tea. It's just water. I should have grabbed the ginger ale, but I forgot to before I started. So I guess I'm gingerless for the moment. But yeah, actually, I think I do have some ginger tea. I drink too much of that too. But anyway, I guess I'll start going through some of these pickups because there's literally a ton I want to get through. Atrix in the house. Hey, man. Let's see. Yeah, I've got so many. I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll start with books because there's just one, but it was so nice. I wanted to cover it. So I'm not sure. I think this is from a couple years ago. Let me see if I can get the printing date on here. Okay, so yeah, printed 2004, and I swear I've seen part of this before, but I've just never gotten to actually look at a copy. But this was in the local bookshop for dirt cheap, and it's a gorgeous art book. But I picked up a copy of Peter Coey's coffee table art book entitled John Ford and the American West, and this thing is just absolutely gorgeous. It is literally about pretty much most of Ford's catalog going in rough chronological order, but with absolutely gorgeous illustrations and photographs and onset stills. Like I said, this is basically a full-on coffee table book. But see if I can find. Like here's an onset still from Manischewitz Liberty Valance. Whoops. It's got absolutely gorgeous printing quality, and I've just been having a ball going through this because sometimes you need pretty things when you need the toilet reading, so, but, and it's not just stills and photographs, but it's also, got reprintings of inspirational and great Western artwork. So when it makes references to Western art, it will actually reprint some of those in here. So this is a really nice, like I said, it's a really nice art book. And then what's also really cool is the end papers are a gorgeous shot of Monument Valley. So I was very happy to pick this thing up. And, art books and coffee table books are never cheap. So whenever I find my local bookstore has a little section, well, it's actually a pretty big section, but it's, the TV cinema, and it's mostly, like fan reference books and a couple biographies here and there. But every once in a while, there's some old textbooks that come through and some really nice art books like this. So for Ford nuts out there, I'm sure if you don't have this already, you've probably seen it like I had, but it's a really nice piece just to have to, pull off the shelf and just simply look at it. It's really gorgeous. So that's it for books. Moving on to this soundtrack that recently released via La La Land Records as part of their, I believe it's called the Universal Heritage Music Collection. And it's a deal with Universal to go back in their vaults and release a bunch of scores, primarily that have never been released. And they came out with this one, and it's something I never thought would be released ever. It's never had an official release. There's only been like 1 or 2 re-recordings. So this was a no-brainer, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I picked up the La La Land Universal limited release of Franz Waxman's iconic score to Bride of Frankenstein. And it gorgeously uses the original 1935 poster art. And as you can see, it has the Universal Heritage collection there in the CD tray. And then the rear. And what's really cool is there's actually a number of bonus tracks. It's got a few alternate takes nicely placed on the end. So it's a really nice program. It's unfortunately not complete because not the entire score survived. But what's really cool is as well is the prologue. The main title and prologue sequence is actually several minutes longer than what's in the original film because that was cut down. The original release that previewed ran about an extra 15 minutes. So the version we all know, the 75-minute or so version, is missing 15 minutes from the premiere version. And a couple minutes are in the opening prologue with Mary Shelley. But if you listen to this cue on the soundtrack, it runs the entire length. It runs about 2 or 3 extra minutes. So you can get an idea of how much longer that sequence was originally. And, for being a 1935 recording, it's really amazing to hear this in this sort of quality. And, they did record with a full orchestra, obviously not, the huge several hundred-piece orchestras that you would get, from the 70s and beyond to today. But for 1935, it's an astonishing piece of work. And even though scores... full feature-length scores really took off with Max Steiner's King Kong in 1933. It was still uncommon in 1935 to have a full symphonic score with motifs, leitmotifs, and everything. So this score and this work of Franz Waxman is really important for a number of reasons, not just because it's an iconic score for a horror film. And I think they've got a shot of the orchestra in here. It's got a really great booklet with a lovely essay, as is usual for these releases. Yeah, here it is. Here is a picture of the actual scoring sessions. And the best part is you have Waxman up there in front, and then seated right there, of course, with his trademark cigar is James Whale himself. So this is definitely one of those times where they were really paying much more attention to the music score than most other people would be, especially in 1935. Because even today, a lot of producers and directors don't, give 2 cents about the score, just so long as it's there to fill the background. But I will say this is limited. It's a limited release, like all of these specialty labels. This one's limited to 3,000 copies, and it's not expensive. It's quite a bit cheaper than most. Most of these releases range between like $29 to $50 or more. But this one, its list price is only $19.99, and you can frequently get it on sale. There's copies on eBay and stuff. So I would recommend getting one of these before they do sell out, because I'm sure this one probably will. But since this is the only official release of the score we've ever gotten, and it's really amazing this happened. So I really do hope that we get more classic Universal horror scores. Just off the top of my head, I think it'd be great to get, Son of Frankenstein, especially the Wolfman. And I'm sure they could get Danny Elfman to write a big giant piece on that, because that is not only a favorite score of his, but that was the inspiration for his Batman theme. If you've ever watched the Wolfman, there's a particular sequence where it's literally the first couple notes of Elfman's iconic Batman theme from '89. And if you don't know the Wolfman, you'll sit bolt upright and you go, "That's Batman," and that's where he got the idea from. Because I'm pretty sure he's a gigantic fan of that score. But there's so many great Universal scores that don't have good releases. So I'm really hoping this project continues, because it's had good success so far. Let's see, got a bunch of comments here. Let's catch up on these real quick. No alcohol in my cup. Nope, just water, because I get parched too fast doing these. Let's see. A-Track was watching the original Frankenweenie on the Nightmare Before Christmas disc. Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize. I've never gotten Nightmare on Laserdisc. I always wanted to get the big box set, but it always eludes me. But I didn't realize they included Frankenweenie on there. So that's cool. I need to redouble my efforts and track down that really pretty, heavy, expensive box set that keeps eluding my grasp. Oh, Brian's got the 76 version of King Kong coming in the mail. That's cool. I guess I should rewatch that. It's been a number of years for me, and I guess there's some good things in there. It's definitely dated. It's definitely a Dino De Laurentiis super fest of just inherent craziness. But I remember when I was a kid, it just felt weird, and the fact that you have the close up shots. It's just Rick Baker in a ape mask, and yeah, it's kind of weird, But I guess it's got some of that inherent 70s cheesiness that, and people do have a certain nostalgia for, especially if you see it young. But I saw the original first, so, so seeing the other versions, is just kind of like, oh, okay. But I do need to rewatch that because I haven't seen it in many years. A-Track's trying to track down more Criterion Laserdiscs. Excellent. That's always a good thing to do and a good idea. And some people collect Criterion. They like to have, with maybe investment in mind, that they can maybe flip out of print titles later or something. But and they do kind of hold their value. But it's such a nice thing to have on the shelf, and all the nice artworks, and then the Laserdisc exclusive stuff, and then the titles that Criterion hasn't gotten the rights to again. So they're the Laserdisc exclusive titles are really cool. So yeah, I started out, and I still, anytime I find an affordable Criterion, I just pick it up if I don't have it, but I'm not going for spine completion or anything. But now I've got way more than I ever intended. So now I'm like, well, I guess one day if I go spine complete, it'd be cool, but I'm not actively trying to do it, although it would be nice. But I don't have the magical, wonderful Dice-Gate Criterion collection. So I think that we all aspire to have shelves like this. Brian found the only copy of Christmas Story, the letterbox version, on the database. Yeah, I don't have that one either. It's usually you find the older ones, and then the letterbox one, it's not rare, but it's very uncommon. And then if you find it, it usually sells in like 2 seconds, because everybody's like, Christmas Story. They don't even care that they've gotten the widescreen one. But yeah, that I would like to check that out. I saw Christmas Story way too many times as a kid, because TBS started doing the, we show it for 48 or 72 hours. And my dad was obsessed with the Christmas Story, and it was like it never went away. But now I can kind of take it for what it is. And I'd like to see the Laserdisc version. They did do a like spiffed up Blu-ray. They just like encoded it better with lossless audio, but you got to sift through all of the old Blu-rays with lossy audio to find it. So if I don't ever find the Laserdisc, I'm just going to try and find that a re-encoded, quiet, under the radar Warner Brothers reissue. Rise of the Skywalker might suck ass like The Last Jedi. Well, you guys know me. I don't think I think it'd be very hard to make something worse than The Last Jedi, but sometimes it seems like they're really trying to. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be. I'm trying to just avoid it. Like, if I get dragged to it, fine, but I'm not going out of my way to see it. And I don't want to know what Disney does with Star Wars. And, if it's good, it'll be a pleasant surprise. But I'm sure they're basically trying to make Force Awakens 2 to win everybody back and try and make people happy again. And so I don't know where they're going to go with it. So yeah, basically that's where I'm at with Disney Star Wars. I haven't watched any of The Mandalorian because I don't have Disney Plus, and I'm not into streaming stuff. And yeah, like I've read most of the EU, and so I knew about The Mandalorian, so I didn't really know what they could do with that other than have some dude in a Mandalorian helmet wandering around some Western. But and then when they showed the pictures of the baby Yoda character, I was just like, oh no. Like the point of Yoda is you're not really supposed to know his backstory or what his race is and so on and so forth. But okay, they have baby Yoda. All right, you guys go do your thing. Brian's just going to watch his original LD copies to get the bad taste out of the mouth after watching Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. But you never know. It could be better than horrible. So Wolfman soundtrack sounds like Batman movie soundtrack. Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember the first time I saw the Wolfman, I literally sat upright and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's Batman!" And of course, I was like 10 at the time when I first saw the Wolfman, but I'd seen Batman a couple years before, and I was like, I had to stop my. I had rented. Can't remember if it was VHS or DVD because that the DVDs were out. But I think yeah, it was I got the DVD from the library. It was the very first, the Classic Monster Edition DVD of the Wolfman, and I had picked up the remote and stopped, rewound, played it, played it over and over about 4 or 5 times in a row, and I'm like, yep, that's the Batman theme. That's the Batman music. Okay, so I wasn't just hearing things, and then I've heard Elfman talk about it in some interviews, or it's been referenced, like that was the inspiration. Oh wow, A-Track likes Terminator Dark Fate better than The Last Jedi. Wow. Yeah, I didn't go see Dark Fate because it just looked boring. It just looked like another rehash of old ideas and stuff. But if when it comes to disc, I might watch it, once just out of curiosity and just to, see if it's a good home theater experience. But it's not something I was like actively going to go out of my way and check it out because, I mean, I enjoy Terminator 2. I think the first film is great, and but yeah, after 1 and 2, there's nowhere to go with the story. They finished the story they were telling, so I don't know why they keep cranking out these sequels. Um, Video connoisseur. Gotta just poking your head in. Gotta head out in a bit. Okay. Well. Thanks for dropping in for a moment, and you can always catch the after replay. And once again, I'm sorry to kind of spring this on you guys. I didn't want to just suddenly drop in and be like, hey. But anyway, let's see. Oh, connoisseur got the Criterion of Devil and Daniel Webster. Oh, awesome. I still need to get that one. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I think the easiest one to get is the DVD. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they did it on DVD and on Laserdisc, and yeah, I haven't rewatched that in a while, but I need to get that Criterion because it's not on Blu-ray anywhere. More Baby Yoda talk. Yeah, it's just weird. Like Yaddle was weird enough sitting on the Jedi Council, and it was Lady Yoda with hair like that. That was weird enough, but it's like, did we really need this? You're just making this to sell plush toys at Christmas, right, guys? Okay. Yep. Trying to sell Christmas toys. Yeah. All right. So enough of that tangent. Let me get back onto this because otherwise we'll be here all night. Let's see. Oh. So in the interim, because it's been way too long, I managed to get my Amazon UK order in, and just a couple things I've been meaning to pick up, and a couple new things, and they had a lot of sales going on. Well, not really sales, but a lot of markdowns and stuff leading up to Black Friday and Thanksgiving. So all of these were literally dirt cheap. But of course, I had to pick up my most anticipated disc of the year, which is Arrow's release of the Anthony Mann, Jimmy Stewart classic Western, The Far Country, the 4th out of their 5 Western film collaboration, which is absolutely legendary in the genre. I grabbed the UK version because it wound up being cheaper than the US one, and the US one was backordered a lot of places. It comes with this gorgeous new artwork and a slipcover with reversible original art. It's got 2 discs with a different presentation and a different ratio on each disc, and it's from a new 4K scan and remaster that Arrow themselves did. Unfortunately, it's a little bit soft in the transfer, but that seems to be because the element itself is a bit soft. So if you pick this up and you pop it in and you're kind of dismayed at first, just keep that in mind. But again, it's loaded with extras, tons of new interview pieces, not only about the film, but the Stuart Mann collaboration and Anthony Mann as a director, which is great because he's one of the great unheralded American directors of all time. And I'm just astonished this happened because these Westerns have not been, ever. I mean, they're lauded critically if you dig into the Western genre. If you talk to Western buffs, they'll know them. But it's not like they talk about these like The Searchers or, things like that. and they're hugely important because they really predate the revisionist western, and they're all they deal each film has central lead performance by Jimmy Stewart of this intensely psychologically complex characterization that really these are the precursors to revisionist westerns of the 1960s. And over the 5 films, they each have a different flavor. This one, they did some location photography, and it's set in the Yukon, so it's a really interesting western because you get a landscape of these snowy peaks, and there's an avalanche sequence, and you can really feel how cold it is. There are some scenes where they do have the cold breath, and there's snow everywhere. So yeah, it's I'm just astonished that somebody took the time to do this, because Kino released the second film, Bend to the River, and it's just the DVD master slapped on a Blu-ray, and it's just it's quite sad. It's rumored Criterion is supposed to do Winchester 73, but that's been a couple of years. And I'm hoping Warner Archive does The Naked Spur. Sony did do a cleanup job on Men from Laramie, which is the final film of the 5. So you can get that on Blu-ray and from Twilight Time, or get the British Masters of Cinema one. But yeah, this is highly recommended on every level, and it's still really, really cheap. So it's still most places under $20. And I had to grab this as well because I've been meaning to get it, and it was dirt cheap. So I grabbed the Masters of Cinema Blu-ray release of the Anthony Mann masterpiece, Man of the West. This was the film he made after the 5 films with Jimmy Stewart. They kind of had a little bit of a falling out, and kind of went their separate ways. And then Mann made this Western with Gary Cooper, and it's along similar lines. It's just as dark. And when you see this, it's quite astonishing this film was made, at this point in time, because it's all the Mann films were hugely influential to people who came later, especially Sergio Leone. But there's sequences in this film that have been huge influences on later films. It feels like a revisionist Western from the late 60s. It has the dark tonality of a Peckinpah Western, or a Leone Western, or a Corbucci Western. And it's really stunning to see Gary Cooper in a really dark role like this. And it doesn't start that way. It takes its time. But it's really a magnificent performance from Gary Cooper, and outside of his usual comfort zone. And in a lot of ways, this is a precursor to Unforgiven in terms of plot structure and tone. And this is the better film. Like, Unforgiven is very good, but I get tired of it being the one Western that people can remember. But when I finally get to see this, because it's been very hard to see for a number of decades, it finally came out on DVD in like 2007. But when you see this, there's a lot of similarities. And I could put my finger on it, and then I was reading an article that mentioned that it was very similar to Unforgiven, and I'm like, oh, that's it. But yeah, it's Unforgiven is not like a ripoff or a remake or anything, but it's a similar idea of the former outlaw turned essentially good man who has to go back into the old life for various reasons, and it's a downward spiral from there. But anyway, Kino did the Blu-ray here, but it doesn't have a lot of extras. Eureka did this version, which has a nice amount of extras and better encoding. So if you do have region-free capability, this would be the version to get. It's double format, so you get a Region 2 PAL DVD. But of course, you'd need to have a region-free capability to play the Region B Blu-ray. But the Kino's fine, but if you want the better version, it's this one. And currently, this is literally dirt cheap, and it's one of the best Westerns ever made. Here's another one I've been meaning to pick up for a long while, and because the US version from the Vincent Price box set's, of course, out of print, so I picked up the UK release of Witchfinder General. This one has never been marked down, and then they finally marked it down. So it's region-free. Some of the extras are in PAL, so if you don't have PAL capability, you won't be able to play those, but the actual disc is region-free. It's the same master as the MGM put the film back together for DVD, so it's that same restored master. So it's finally the uncut film with the correct soundtrack and correct titles. It's the same master Shout Factory used. It's got really nice encoding, and it's got different extras. So you do still get some great extras on this release that are different to the Shout one. But of course, the Shout release is out of print. So this is the best way to watch the film currently, and you can get it when it goes on sale. It could be about $10 or less, and it's really nice going from the DVD to this because I had not gotten to see this in HD before, and it's a really big jump. As I said in my Vincent Price stream, this is one of the great, jewels of his entire filmography. Directed by this was the last film directed by Michael Reeves before his untimely death. And it's a cult classic in Britain, especially because it's recognized not just as a horror film, but as an artistic triumph for such a low budget film. But if you've never seen this before, it is a brutal film based around real events about this character of a corrupt witchfinder going around and testing those accused of witchcraft simply because the people didn't like them. And if you have a lovely young daughter, well, she could sleep with the witchfinder and maybe save you for a couple days, or just a completely ruthless, moralless character. And it's just a fantastic film, and it's amazing they made it on such a low budget. And I've said this before, but basically imagine if you crossed A Clockwork Orange with Barry Lyndon. That's sort of what Witchfinder General is like. That's the best way I can describe it. So imagine the darkness and the morality and the sort of roughness of A Clockwork Orange mixed with the period setting of Barry Lyndon, and that's sort of what Witchfinder General feels like. So I'm just very happy to finally have this. But yeah, you can pick this up. It is region free, thankfully. And this one, they did have this on sale. It was literally less than $5, and I was like, well, yeah, I got to do it. So I picked up the BFI release of Nosferatu. This uses the older photoplay restoration of the film, so it is complete, but it's a different restoration. So it's got different color tinting. Actually, most of this is left black and white, if I'm remembering correctly, and then they have their own color tinting. It's also got its own selection of extras, and it's got its own different scores. This version does have the score recorded by James Bernard of Hammer Horror fame, and it's a fantastic score, and it basically makes Nosferatu feel like a full-on horror film instead of having the typical usual other scores, with the sort of sprightly style music. But yeah, currently this got marked down on Amazon UK, and it's literally just a few bucks. So it's a great way to watch the film. But the Masters of Cinema version has the official, fully restored modern transfer and restoration and different extras. So if you want everything, you have to have both. And last from this UK package, this one, again, they put a bunch of Aero discs on sale, and I missed out on the big, 3-disc limited box. And this one, it's still really nice. They removed the super long television version, which is basically the same as the long version, just with some censored shots. So this is just 2 discs, but it's literally dirt cheap. So I picked up the reissue of Waterworld with the brand new master and all the great extras and this really nice artwork. It's got a full-on slipcover. So again, this is just the budget release version that removes the TV cut disc. But it does have all the extras and everything, and in a nice hub like so. And yeah, this thing it's less than $10. It's an amazing release for the price point. Would have been cool if they'd been able to keep the 3rd disc, but I could understand keeping costs down. But yeah, this was just, I'd been meaning to rewatch this, and the 3-disc set came out and sold out, and then this popped up, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. So told you I had a lot. So speaking of Arrow, I did get this one because I knew it was probably going to be gone and done in like no time at all because it's a very popular film, and I really loved the new MGM master, and I knew Arrow would do top notch work and like making it perfect, and it seems like they really did because they went in and adjusted even a lot of the uncut footage that was of varying quality for the director's cut. So I picked up the full limited release of Robocop from Arrow, and this is in the big slipbox style with the nice J card with the that actually continues the art. This is absolutely gorgeous. I love this style of packaging. It's nice and fancy without being too much, and it's also not expensive. This thing has been on sale for you know 25, sometimes $20. I picked this up at Barnes and Noble. They had their big Arrow sale, and it was literally dirt cheap for everything you get in here. So this uses the 2014 MGM Master that was done at 4K, and Arrow did their own adjustments, and they also added the original 2.0 Dolby Surround audio, and they also went back and got the original 4-channel soundtrack master and added that as well. So you have the 5.1 remix, the 2.0 stereo surround original track, and the discrete 4-channel or 4.0 mix that is literally from the original stems. And some people have already found there's a few little differences, so it's pretty cool that I always love it when different mixes have a few little differences here and there. As you can see, it's literally just crammed with extras, brand new interviews. I haven't even had time to even go through like a third of these yet, and it pretty much I think it brings over everything from the MGM release. And then on the back, a nice touch, you have the Omnicorp logo. Now inside, you have the standard keep case, and it does have the really awesome, iconic original art on the inside. And you have the Omnicorp logo here. You get some really nice postcards. You get a Robocop bumper sticker, which is really cute. And it's only 2 discs. The first disc has the long director's cut, and then the second disc has the theatrical cut. And of course, the extras are spread across both discs. And to show you the original art there, if you want to flip that over. They also have a Steelbook version that has the original art, but the booklet is cut down to fit in the Steelbook because the booklet in this thing is really substantial. So, show you that. So yes, this is the full booklet, and as you can see, it's really quite thick for one of these, and it's literally just jam packed. And the text is nice and readable, but it's also small enough to indicate that there's a lot of stuff in here. It's not just one of the fluff booklets. But yeah, the attention to care and the detail in this release is just stunning. Like, I'm not a giant RoboCop fan, but I really enjoy it. And for the price point, the fact that this is the price of your average Criterion release, that's just the standard keep case. It was just a no-brainer. And like I said, this will probably sell out pretty soon, and then you can just get the standard keep case version. But they might cut out one of the discs, so do keep that in mind. And then they did include the new artwork on a lovely fold-out poster. I really do love this art. I think it's really, really great. And then the reverse has the original poster. So highly, highly recommended. They really went above and beyond, with this particular release. And you can tell they really love this film. And in contrast, Shout Factory just did their big Trouble in Little China reissue with new extras and stuff. But the contrast is it costs a lot more. It's the same transfer from the original Fox Blu-ray. It's not as well encoded, and like I said, it costs a lot more. But yeah, Arrow hit it out of the park with this one, so it's really, really fantastic. Okay, let's see. Okay, what should I do next? Like I said, I got too much. I think what I'm gonna have to do is just save some for next week because otherwise I won't have anything to talk about next week. But last, I'll just go over the few things I picked up on Black Friday because they had some really stupendous deals this Black Friday, both in stores and online. And especially if you're like me, I don't use the digital copies, and so I can sell those for a buck or two, and it makes stuff even cheaper. So this first one, I didn't have a copy of it, and it's the holidays, and I meant to. And with it being a Fox title, there's no telling if it's going to go out of print since the Disney buyout. So I picked up the newest repackaging, which is the same old disc from before of the original Miracle on 34th Street. This is the newer holiday style packaging. See if I can get this to. There we go. And like I said, I picked this up on Black Friday at Walmart and then sold the digital code. So it only cost me about, $2. So which is crazy. But yeah, it's a nice transfer. It's got lossless audio. It's got some nice extras, which I think were made for the DVD release. But it's the same Blu-ray as before. And thankfully, they're not hawking some terrible colorized version like they do on It's a Wonderful Life. So yeah, I'll be happy to finally see this Blu-ray version. I'd meant to pick up the old one, which had this as the actual cover. As you can see, it's just the old disc put in here. But like I said, with it being a Fox title, there's no telling when Disney may change their minds and pull stuff. But yeah, with it being Christmas, you can usually pick up the main titles like this for pretty cheap. So I'll be happy to actually check this out in HD. Now, I really wanted to get the 4K of this, even though I don't currently have a 4K display, but I can't stop buying 4K tiles. But of course, they did the new 4K remastering, but then the 4K release does not have the new Blu-ray. They have the old, terrible colorized disc. And so you have to buy the Blu-ray separately, and it is from the new 4K master. So Amazon blew these out for one day for super, super cheap. So I figured I'd just get the Blu-ray for now and eventually get the 4K when I'm actually 4K ready and once it's on sale. But it does have a nice slipcover. This is the It's a Wonderful Life 4K remastered Blu-ray. And like I said before, both this and the 4K do come with that god-awful colorized disc abomination shoved in here. So if you want this new Blu-ray, you have to buy this separately, or you can import the UK version actually has this disc, but it's going to cost you more to import the British version. The slipcover is pretty nice and the art's pretty nice. It does have a nice reflective sheen to it. It does have the new extras that Paramount made that were on the 4K version. So you can pick this up when it goes on sale, and you can get. I got this for, like I said, Amazon did one of those 1-day sales, and I sell the digital codes for a buck or two to people who really want them, and yeah, so it can go for under $10, and show you the regular version. The new transfer is, miles ahead of the old one. You guys know I've talked about it before. I'm not a fan of the old Blu-ray. It's got a lot of DNR, doesn't look very good, and has lossy audio. I haven't had a chance to really go through this with a fine-tooth comb because I wanted to compare it to my Laserdisc versions and such. Because I swear by the old Criterion CAV box, that's my favorite. But the Republic ones have better audio, so I'm going to do that. And plus, I don't like to watch this when it's not, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or Boxing Day. It just doesn't feel quite right. And we'll talk about this more next week, because next week I'm just going to do everything Frank Capra related, because I like to watch all of the main Capra classics and leading up to It's a Wonderful Life for the Christmas season. So I figured I'll do that for next week's show. Amazon really got me this year with some of the deals they had. This was another one. It was a lightning deal, and I didn't have it, and I needed some of the titles in this, and getting this whole box was less than half the cost of just getting 2 of these. So I've got to part out some of the ones I already had, and I've now got the ones I needed. So I picked up the Spielberg Director's Collection from Universal. Amazon was blowing this out for about $15. It's a lot nicer package than I realized. It's got a nice reflective gloss on it, and you have a decent sized booklet with a nice fold out. Unfortunately, it's Blu-ray discs in the cardboard sleeve, you got to double check and make sure they don't have scratches and scuff marks. But the reason why I picked this up is I wanted to get Sugarland Express and Duel on Blu-ray, and 1941 would be nice as well. But 3 of those are not sold in stores, and you got to pay $10 or $15 each. So it was cheaper just to get the whole thing. And like I said, you do get this nice little booklet with a page or 2 on each film, and so this bundles Duel, the Sugarland Express, Jaws, 1941, the E.T. Blu-ray, Always, which is the remake of A Guy Named Joe, and then both Jurassic Park and Lost World. And here is the book. I, of course, pulled out all the discs and made sure they weren't, badly scratched or anything, but I'm probably just going to put these in my usual binder for badly packaged discs that I have. But yeah, you can find this for dirt cheap when it goes on sale or on eBay and such. There's a British equivalent as well if you like getting import discs instead. Same package though. But the version of Duel is not as well encoded, so you need to get the American one. But yeah, so I just picked this up for 2 discs, and the rest are a nice bonus. So just keep an eye out if you're wanting to get some of these, because like I said, it's cheaper to get this whole box when it goes on sale. All right, almost done. All right, so these are 2 that I really got more for the, future proofing, and because they were literally cheaper than I'd ever seen them. And again, I don't use the digital copies, so it makes these even cheaper. So I was like, okay, you got me. I know I'll regret it later if I don't. But yeah, I guess Paramount was doing this because they're both Paramount boxes. But yeah, they were blowing these sets out. They were cheaper online than I've ever seen in a store. So I picked up the Jack Ryan 4K set, which has the Blu-rays for everything. I already had the main Blu-rays for the original 4 films, which, as you probably already know, the Blu-rays for Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger are really bad DNR fiascos. But the new 4K versions have stellar reviews everywhere, and they have great new 4K scans. My favorite is Red October, of course, which does have a good Blu-ray. And I didn't have a copy of Shadow Recruit, so that's basically coming in for free. But yeah, like I said, I sold the digital copies, so this came out to literally nothing for what you get in here. And it's just in a simple but very nice with the black keep case for it being 4K, and then all the discs are on hubs, with each one staggered. You have the Blu-ray and then 4K for each film. So I'll be able to get rid of my original Blu-ray box, and this is actually slimmer on the shelf. But yeah, this thing has been going for very, very cheap, but that's the cheapest I'd seen it. So, and the same for this one. I did want to pick up a copy of Fallout because I had 1 through 5, but on Blu-ray. But that was 10 or so bucks most places, and I try to future-proof myself, so I'd get the 4K version. But then this popped up, and it was the entire box with the 4K of Mission Impossible 1 that I really wanted to have. So I just said, okay, screw it, and I got the entire Mission Impossible 6 film set, which is all 6 films in Blu-ray and 4K, and with the digital copies. And so once I sell off those, this thing will be, I would have gotten it for, well under $20, which is crazy because the retail price on this is super expensive. And it's actually a nice slip box. It's embossed and everything, which I didn't realize. And then you have 2 separate cases. The big thick one is for your Blu-rays, which has some of the special features, but I'm gonna have to hang on to my old Blu-rays because I have the Scandinavian set with the better encodes for 1 through 3. And then I have the store exclusives of 4 and 5 with the bonus discs. So I have to hang on to those too. But this has everything else. But do keep in mind, it has the old, crappy, recycled Blu-rays for 1 through 3 with the lossy audio and old masters. But 4 and 5 and 6 are all the new ones, and you do get some extras on those. And then the 4K set is in its own nice 4K slip keep case. And again, the same style hubs, but yeah, if you're really looking for these, they have been extraordinarily cheap for this past week, and you do get a little tiny booklet to give you some feeling of exclusivity. But yeah, nothing super fancy. So that does it for this week. Like I said, there's a lot kind of backed up that I've accumulated, and I'll have a little bit more for next week. But I figured I'd split it up a little bit, or this would be nothing but new pickups. So, let's see, catch up on some comments. Oh, Garrick dropped in. Hey, man. No worries. I know this was a little impromptu, so no worries. Connoisseur's gonna watch the replay. Good night, sir. Oh, Brian talking about, yes, Kirk Douglas at the ripe old age of 103, and he's still alive and kicking. And yeah, the Spartacus Laserdisc is really wonderful. And I was really amazed when you get the new restoration disc of Spartacus on Blu-ray. They actually went and he filmed an introduction. So that was really touching to see. And of course, it's. I mean, it's amazing he's still with us, but it's also they did have to provide some subtitles because it is kind of hard to understand him. But he does sound amazing for his age, and after his really bad. I can't remember if it was just a stroke or a series of strokes that he had in I think it was the early to mid 90s. But he's still, even after all that, still going, and it's really cool to see that they did that for the new. Spartacus restoration. But yeah, the Laserdisc is great, and I love the Criterion package. That's like probably my favorite trifold that I own. Brian got both Robin and the Seven Hoods and Ocean's 11 for only $5 shipped on eBay. Dang, wish I'd found that. I've got them both on Laserdisc, but I've read the reviews, and the Blu-rays are supposed to be really good. 4K's in the house. Hey, man. And you are asking what I was reading this morning about the Masters of Cinema UK Blu-ray release of Fistful of Dynamite Docusucker. Yeah. I didn't order it because I was going to wait for reviews, but basically what it looks like is they had to work with what they were given. A gorgeous looking package, slip box, booklet and everything. It's got 2 discs with a couple of new extras, like some nice talking head pieces. But it's basically the MGM master that Kino did and MGM both did on Blu-ray. It does say it had mono, but I don't know if it's original mono or if it's the down mix of the 5.1 remix, like the older Blu-rays. And then the second disc is that Italian master. But if you look at DVD Beaver, they posted some screen caps, and it looks like it's unfortunately the second Italian Blu-ray master, where they took the problematic first one and gave it the yellow coloring and stuff of some of the other releases. So, and of course, because it's the UK, they did make, I believe it's 6 seconds they cut of horse falls and things like that. So there is that to consider too. So it's like, it basically brings everything together that's out there, because I had to go and track down the first Italian Blu-ray and import it, and then get the MGM Blu-ray, and then I didn't get the Kino Blu-ray. So this basically like brings everything together, and I would like to get a copy, even though I technically don't need it because I like the packaging and it's got some new extras and stuff. But it's unfortunately not a definitive release because they were not given the materials to do so. But they actually took the time to present both masters, which Kino did not do. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I do appreciate they put the effort in, and it's not super expensive, and it does have nice packaging and everything. I just really wish it was that somebody would do a new transfer, because that's one. The US transfer is problematic. The Italian transfer is problematic. And if somebody could do a new transfer that didn't have anything missing and had the original mono, that would be really great. And I'm like, it seems like the potential is there, but I don't think MGM is really wanting to do that, because it's the least known of all of Leone's main films, outside of Colossus of Rhodes. And it doesn't have Clint Eastwood in it. It doesn't have the big fan base. It doesn't have, they can't put Quentin Tarantino on a quote on the back of the box. But it is that important, and it's a staggering adult, really incredible picture that really stays with you for a long time. It's an absolute masterpiece, and it's unfortunate that every version you go and you try to watch it on, it's usually got some problem. Um, to be honest, the best version to date in terms of being 100% complete and having the least issues is actually the first Italian Blu-ray, but it is region free if I'm remembering correctly, but you have to buy it used now because it doesn't exist anymore. But the transfer, the color's kind of weird. It's a bit dirty and the framing is kind of weird. But it does have the uncensored English mono, but it unfortunately is a tiny bit off sync as it goes along because nothing's perfect. But it does have the full flashback at the end. So it's the only version of the English mono, uncensored, with the flashback at the end, because the US Laserdisc that MGM did, which is the second best version, and that's what got released as the first PAL DVD over in Region 2, that has the uncut mono. That is complete, except for it doesn't have the final flashback and line of dialogue. So it's like 95% there, and the final flashback is really important. So it's like, ah. And the way I first saw it was the MGM put out the DVD here in the States, the special edition. They finally put those out of Leone Films in 2007. So I had to buy that when it came out at Target. And I literally got it on release day and ran home to watch it and was blown away, but then realized that it had the wrong sound mix and the wrong music and the wrong dialogue. And I'm like, oh, dang it. So, yeah, it's basically, a long story short, it's a mixed bag. It's the best overall release that we've gotten, and somebody actually took the time to try and make a better release, but it's unfortunately imperfect due to the materials they were provided. So those of you who were kind of wondering about it, that's how I feel about it. So it's not something I could technically like recommend to people. Unless they were like really wanting to see the film and they understood the couple quirks of it. But if it does have the, if somebody can confirm it does have the original mono tracks and not a 5/1 DAW mix, then that would make it a lot better. Then I'd say the only problem would be that it was cut for those 6 seconds of horse falls, which again, that's what happens in the UK. So most people are already used to that if they're buying UK releases. So that was a really long answer. Basically, I finally found some of that information today. People were posting, so they finally got some of their copies in the mail. Gary was so tempted to pick up the new Nosferatu Steelbook. Yes. Oh, I saw that art on the Best Buy website. I was just looking at their Black Friday deals, and they were like, "Oh, we got Steelbook for $12.99," and I saw that. I'm like, "Oh crap, I want that, but I don't need it." But yeah, I know that they're going to do 4K at some point. It's already got a 4K DCP. It's just a matter of putting that on a disc. And when they do, man, that thing's going to blow people away. I can put the Blu-ray on it and it already blows people away. Like that's like the one Blu-ray you can put on, and even if you upres it to a 4K TV, it will look like a 4K disc. I think it's the best Blu-ray on the market currently. That and My Fair Lady, the redo Robert Harris did. But yeah, that's going to come out in 4K soon. So I was the same way. I'm like, yeah, I can hold off, even though it's a gorgeous Steelbook. I don't normally go for Steelbooks, but man, Saul Bass artwork on a red background. I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, man, I wish I had that. What do you think about the No Time to Die trailer? Well, besides me wanting to crawl in a hole and die, sorry, bad pun. I mean, it's good they finally have a trailer out there so people can actually see stuff and see what they're trying to do. And it's very clear that they're trying to not only reassure the fan base, but also give it some more mass appeal. There's a definite uptick in the amount of humor they're trying. It seemed I got a lot of vibes of The Spy Who Loved Me. That was the main one where seeing that trailer, it was like there are lots of little references. There are a lot of things that remind you of other things. But in terms of having this female agent character going up against Bond in the field and sort of a back and forth, and some of the humor in there, it seems like there are a lot of Spy Who Loved Me vibes. But unfortunately, they're doing some like stupid modern stuff, like they actually give the famous introduction line, but it's just played off as a joke, like it's a Marvel movie, and it's like, oh, this is not right. But I'm hoping I'll be pleasantly surprised. I always try and go in with an open mind. I always support Eon and at least keeping going, but and I have extraordinarily low expectations, shall we say. I am beyond glad this is Craig's final outing. It's like coming out of a dark tunnel back into the light. And that's, again, nothing. I always want to point this out. It's nothing against Daniel Craig as an actor. He's just horribly miscast, and they've gone in a completely weird direction. At least that's my 2 cents. But it does seem like they're trying to give it a sort of looser feel. They're trying to inject some energy into it because Spectre was a lifeless mess, and the relationship from the end of Spectre that was left open-ended, led most of us to think, okay, are they going to try and do a lift from Honor Majesty's Secret Service, because that's what it seems to indicate. But it seems like they're going to have her just be recurring throughout the film instead of just we all kind of thought, okay, she's just going to get killed off in the pre-title sequence, but it looks like they're not going to do that. But yeah, I mean, I always want them to do well. I don't want them to do badly or anything. I just want them to tell, good stories like they used to. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. Like, I saw that trailer and I'm like, okay, well, that's like License to Kill, and that's The Spy Who Loved Me, and that's that's a Goldeneye nod, that's a Goldfinger nod, that's a Thunderball nod. That it's like, okay, because they were like, yeah, on Spectre we tried to put like at least 5 or 10 nods to every movie in the series in the movie. So if you look carefully, and I was in the theater and I'm like, oh no, oh. That's the Tangier outfit from The Living Daylights. Like, that's the same jacket. Like, what? And then but I died laughing when they showed off the V8 Vantage from the Living Daylights, and he's got another garage, and he pulls the tarp off, and there's the Vantage, and it's like, well, is there a Bond car garage for every car? So it's like, okay, well, when that one gets destroyed, he has to go to garage number 75 that happens to be somewhere in France, and he opens the garage, and there's the For Your Eyes Only 2CV. And he hops in the yellow 2CV and drives off, and that gets destroyed. So he goes to another garage, and there's the Dr. No Sunbeam Alpine, and that gets destroyed. And he goes to another garage, and there's there's the Mach 1 Mustang from Diamonds Are Forever, or the Moon Buggy from Diamonds Are Forever. That'd be really great. And I could see it now. Daniel Craig would be looking all super serious but inside the Diamonds Are Forever moon buggy, anyway, that's just me being silly. But yeah, I laughed. I totally laughed hysterically when they showed just another garage with another classic car that has nothing to do with these new films just there. And I'm like, okay, I guess they couldn't rent a DB5 that day. I don't know. So as usual, I hope they do better, and I hope they do well, because this, the series health needs to improve. And of course, anytime you have it being the last film, that means there's an imminent switchover coming, and then there's no telling what's going to happen there, because that's always a it's dangerous when they get into transitional time periods, and especially since there's been such a gap between films recently. Anyway, moving along, 4K saw a print of Goodfellas 2 months ago, and kind of looked like a grindhouse print. Compared to the Blu-ray that release, looks nothing like the print version. You're probably right. If you're talking about the original Blu-ray, that was based on the old DVD master, the special edition one, and then the original DVD was so old it was a flipper, and that was the Laserdisc master. But the new 4K version and the remastered Blu-ray, which I have, is miles better. And I've seen some people say that they saw a print version, and they think the 4K version looks much more like the print version, which I could understand. That makes a lot of sense. I was really impressed with the new remastered 1080p disc on that. I know the 4K version, everybody said, had problems with the brightness levels, but the new 1080p disc, I think, is really fantastic. I keep my old Laserdisc because I want to have the original 2.0 surround mix, even though the 5.1 does sound pretty much the same. I'm just that level of stickler, as you guys know. But yeah, I think if I ever do get to see a print, I'm pretty sure it'll probably look very close to the 4K restoration version. All right. With that being said, I'd like to move on to the feature topics of discussion. Now, the first, I originally planned to just do to talk about various, holiday theme films or films I like to watch around the holidays, or some like nice alternate Christmas choices. But then there was a beautiful album release, and I just had to talk about it, so I figured I'd talk about both. And I always intended this channel to also dabble in music and books and things, but of course the primary focus is movies, motion pictures, film history, things like that. But I got to talk about this because I knew it was coming, and I was like, I'm sure it'll be good, but I didn't expect it to be this good. And I'm like, wow, I got to talk about it. So of course I am discussing the honestly, the really amazing new album from The Who, simply entitled Who. This came out this week. It is, of course, Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey with not only the bands they've been playing with on tours for the past, roughly, 15, almost 20 years since they came back in 2000. But it's also got other players on here. It's produced by Dave Sardy. So, of course, that does mean it has a little bit of, it does, in terms of sound, it does feel a little modern. Mostly because the mastering for the CD and digital versions is, of course, really loud. In terms of being the loud and not having as much dynamics. It is a really nice recording, and it does sound good, even though the CD and main releases have a DR score of about 5 or 6 on the dynamic range scale. But even with that, I've been listening to this for pretty much this whole week on repeat to really start to live with it. As being a giant Who fan, I've got to analyze everything on here, because this is their first album since Endless Wire in 2006, and it's been teased for a long while now. And when I saw them on tour, they did play one of the new songs, and they've been testing out some of the other ones in some of the successive shows. But this is the Target version deluxe CD, which uses the really cool Peter Blake artwork. He did the jacket artwork for Face Dances, so it's definite throwback to their earlier years. This Target version just uses the center segment. The actual full art is about 3 or 4 block panels bigger and includes a lot more images. And if you get the regular CD or the vinyl versions, it's definitely going to have all of that. The vinyl does have a lot more dynamics, and everybody really likes it. There's a couple versions of that. The standard version, and then there's one they sell at indie record shops that has a second LP of various hits from their back catalog. And then the website had a 45 RPM version that was more expensive, but I really wanted it. And then it got back ordered. So all of us who ordered it still haven't gotten it yet. So I went ahead and grabbed this version at Target, which has 3 bonus tracks on here. And they're all good bonus tracks. So if you do get this CD, I'd say just grab the Target version. It's on sale this week for, I think it's $13. But yeah, even though this is a DR5, it's still listenable. You can, it sounds good in the car, which, that's not saying very much. But listening even on, pretty good equipment, you can tell this album has energy. It has a focus to it that's really surprising. And I like Endless Wire. I've always liked Endless Wire, and very few people did, because it was much more operatic and didn't really feel like a Who album. This does. In terms of Who scholarship, if you will, I'd say there's definite vibes of the Who Are You album on here. Probably with a little bit of the feel of Pete's songwriting on Face Dances. And not that it sounds like those, but there's some of the feel of that era. And like I said, every song on here is great. There's no throwaways. There's some really interesting left turns, getting towards the end of the regular 11-track album. So it's a really impressive album for 2019 for them to come out with. And I'll just go ahead and say, Roger Daltrey sounds so amazing on this record, especially considering if all the throat problems he's had for the past 15, 20 years, ever since they started doing the reunion shows. It just got progressively worse. He would still soldier on. So if you listen to Endless Wire, their last album, and then you listen to this, it is a night and day difference. I mean, he sounds stunningly good on this. It's just like it's like your mouth just drops open, especially if you've seen them live. In the past couple tours, he did have throat surgery that really helped to restore what was left of his vocal range. But I mean, I never thought he would sound this good on a recording again. I didn't think we would actually get another full album. It was just teased over and over. What's also really cool about the CD release, I can get it to line up straight so you can see, they've actually reproduced the original old school 70s and 80s Polydor stereo label, and then all the tracks are printed on here in the old school font. So it's exactly like you would have gotten on an actual 12-inch LP back in the day. The website has all of the versions for sale, and they've also made a audio cassette version if you are a big cassette collector, because that's now coming back in vogue. I don't know what the sound quality is going to be like, but they also reproduced the old school Polydor tape art. So it's got the album art shrunk down on a white background on the cassette tape cover. So that's I thought that was pretty cool if you were going to do that, and it's not super expensive if you want a modern cassette. But yeah, I am so pleasantly surprised by this. Even if you're not a big Who fan, this is a really great record. I don't really, admittedly, I don't listen to much modern music, but I try to keep up with things, so I at least know what some of the references are that people make. But this is just a truly great record. It's really good. If you were to get one version, and you did have a good vinyl turntable set up, and you are into maintaining dynamics, I would definitely say go ahead and just get the regular vinyl version. But the bonus tracks on here are really good. So this would be a case where I might recommend getting, if you really like the album, get the standard vinyl version, and then also get this version at Target. But it's been people have been saying it's been hard to find. There were 2 copies at my local store. I had to go search through and find the one rack of CDs they have. So you might have a tough time. You might have to go to a couple Targets to get this specific version. But yeah, it's just I had to talk about this. It's just fantastic. If you listen to this, especially if you're a big fan, a lot of these grow on you. Like I said, I don't think there's a bad track on the album. I think even all 3 of the bonus tracks are really good. The second bonus track is actually an old, I believe it's an old demo from the 60s that they've gone back and added some pieces to, and it's actually a nice listen. And if you get the 45 speed version from the website, if they actually ever get any more process, so they sent it to us, it also it comes with a 10-inch extra LP with another 60s demo entitled Sand, and that's exclusive to that. So I do hope I can listen to that version soon. But yeah, so far I've just been wearing this out all week. So I cannot recommend this highly enough. It's absolutely fantastic. And to also mention, Pete came out with, he has had some published work before, like Horse's Neck and some poetry and stuff, but not really a full-on novel until now. And as far as I understand it, this is supposed to be what's going to be like the backbone of a new basically a new opera of sorts based around the story he wrote. So he basically took the story and put it down in novel form. So that is his new book, Age of Anxiety, with this absolutely gorgeous cover. I haven't had time to fully finish this yet, but I'm trying to do that in the next day or two. But it's basically it's very reminiscent of, if you're a big Pete fan, his early '90s solo album Psycho Derelict, which was about a fading has-been rock star and told a story through the music and with pieces of dialogue, which is it's a really interesting work. But most people were like, this isn't a rock album. What is this? So in terms of feel, this kind of has that sort of psychedelic feel to it. But like I said, I just haven't had time to finish it all the way yet. But it's just like I didn't expect a double shot of Townsend written goodness in 1 year, let alone practically almost in the same month. So yeah, this is just a fantastic surprise. And if you do get the chance to see their live show, it's actually really good. Of course, it depends on they're playing with local orchestras for every show, and it's like a hybrid mix of an orchestra show and a regular rock show. But it's actually a really nice show, and it should be even better now that they're going to be playing more songs from the new album. But yeah, I had to talk about it some because it's really good. It's not just, I can actually say that and it's not be as a fanboy, because I'll be like, I can go on about Pete's solo albums or Roger's solo albums, and I have Keith's one solo album that's really more of a joke album, and I have most of John's solo albums, and I can talk about some of those, and if it's not with a bunch of Who fans, it's just a bunch of blank stares. And I'm like, Endless Wire is really great. It's got some fantastic stuff on it, and I'm really having to oversell it because most people would listen to track one and just turn it off because they'd be like, it's too arty. But anyway, yeah, this is their last studio album, Endless Wire, and I still like this album. I would like to get the vinyl version because, unfortunately, because anything modern does have loudness applied to it. Even this has some. But like I said, even though this has loudness applied to it, it doesn't overwhelm it even on the CD or download versions. And I believe this is on every download platform. I think most of it's on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's on Pandora, Spotify, all that stuff. So you can listen to it pretty much anywhere. And I think some services do have the bonus tracks, so you can check those out as well. So that it has been made pretty easy to actually check this out. But yeah, I had to talk about this song because this is just fantastic, because I'm happy they're still doing stuff and still touring, but I just for years I've been like, all right, Pete, that's great, but why not just make a new record? Like, take some of these ideas and just lay them down in a studio and just see what happens. Don't kill yourself with another tour. Like just and then it's finally happened. It's really good. So. See, I've got these set aside. Like I said before, I'd say in terms of what they might sound like if you know the band's discography, I'd say it's like imagine a 2019 cross between Who Are You? This is the original UK Polydor pressing, which is, I think, the best sounding version of the album. But so basically, it's probably a cross between the sound of Who Are You and the sort of we're still alive and angry vibe, and imagine if you cross that with the sound and style of Face Dances. And this is the original US pressing, and this has the lovely Peter Blake artwork, which again, they brought him back to do this new artwork. So if you get the full vinyl version or the regular CD, it has a big Peter Blake art like this with all the different squares and different images. So like I said, the Target CD basically just takes the central portion and makes like its own special thing. So if and when I do finally get the 45 LP version, I'll show that when it actually gets here, and you can see the whole artwork. But yeah, I do think, especially the Face Dances and It's Hard, the two 80s Who albums are really underrated. And this is the original US pressing you can get in most any record store for less than $5. And the sound quality on this thing is stunning. I think it's one of the best sounding records that you can get, period. It's got an amazing production. It was produced by the Eagles regular producer, and just beautiful mastering on this thing. And I think it's one of the records everybody should own, simply from a music quality and sound quality perspective. And you don't have to go and get a UK import like you do for Who Are You, because this one sounds so much better than the US one. I've even got the half speed master super disc version that took me forever to find, and that's got too much high end, and this UK version blows that out of the water too. So, but anyway, I'd basically say, like, if you were trying to figure out what the new album was like, it's like a cross between Who Are You and Face Dances in terms of feel and songwriting. But the writing too is really good on the new album. It's they very easily could have called the new album Not Dead Yet. That's like the feel of it, and it's really perfect for coming out in December at the end of the year and the holidays, and the whole notion of the death of one year and the rebirth of another new year. So an idea of regeneration, and it fit that those are all themes that are all over the album. And it's also really cool for diehards like myself. There's a lot of nice little references, and especially to their past. It's not hitting you over the head, but they're intrinsic because they're obviously, much older and they're still doing this. So, but yeah, that's I just wanted to talk about it some. I'm trying to promote it any way I can. I'm telling anybody who might at all be interested, because it's really good. It's gotten a lot of great reviews. It's gotten 4 and 5 star reviews in most music magazines and publications and stuff. So again, it's not just me. I'm not just fanboying saying it's great. Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't really play it safe. It's not just a bunch of songs trying to sound very 2019ish like you would expect from most what they would term legacy acts making a new album. It's definitely an album that stands on its own. But I got to live with it more before I can really ascertain its overall, like, long lasting greatness. But of course, it's a different band, so you can't really, say it's, I think it's the third best Who album ever. I think it's better than Who by Numbers. It's like, no, it's different, and they're not saying that, it's the same band. It's just, this is where we're at now. So yes, if any of this at all sounds interesting and you haven't heard it yet, please go check it out. You will be. I hope you will be as pleasantly surprised as I was, but I was just hoping for anything. And admittedly, if Pete Townsend wrote down the phone book, I would search it for hidden meanings and find it fascinating. So take it with a grain of salt, but it is really great and a fantastic surprise that we finally have a new album, and it's really good. So, to talk some about holiday releases, I figure we stick on a music vibe for a second to sort of transition over. So this is something that's a complete. It's a must every year, and the television special still gets aired every year, and the television special is great, and but I think it's actually kind of outstripped in terms of importance by its score. And, music nerds know the score. Everybody and their brother knows the music because it gets played, as soon as it hits December 1st, practically everywhere. But in terms of, musical recognition and things, it's not treated the way that the actual special is. So I wanted to talk about it some. And of course, again, the special is great, but I had to mention one of the greatest albums of all time, which is the Vince Guaraldi Trio soundtrack recording to A Charlie Brown Christmas. And it's not just the fact that this is such a holiday tradition and a holiday classic, and everybody and their brother plays this in their cars, on radio stations, in every Starbucks in the land, but because it's just phenomenal across the board. The performance, the recording, the energy of the music and the playing itself. It's one of the great jazz albums ever. And the fact that they actually went out and got truly great professional musicians to record the soundtrack for a children's television holiday special back in the 1960s. But every time you listen to this, it's one of the truly great albums. There's always new things to find, and it's not all just, it's not a completely happy holiday album, because the special itself is about getting to the true meaning and spirit of Christmas. And the album does reflect that. It does have really great somber pieces in it, and that sort of 360-degree full view of not just the holiday spirit, but like holiday melancholia, I think makes it even more timeless. And especially if you listen to a really great version of this and not just whatever's on streaming or hear it in a Starbucks or something, it seems to unlock even more. And researching the versions of releases of this album, there are whole articles about that, and I still would like to get several other versions simply to have some of the variations. But basically, if you have any of the original mastering CDs from 1988 to like the early 2000s, none of the remastered ones, they sound really great. They've got full dynamics. It could be admittedly better, but that's the version I grew up with. And some have some bonus track or two that are not from the special, so there's that as well. But basically, if you want to hear the ultimate experience, back in about 2005 or so, I think it was, the mastering team of Steve Hoffman and Kevin Gray went back and actually used the original master tapes for the first time. They found them in the Fantasy Vaults, and then they made this beautiful 45-speed audiophile reissue from gosh, I think it was Acoustic, because there's so many different labels that either have gone away or don't exist anymore. But that was out for a couple years, and I never could afford a copy, just as, I was in high school. I didn't have, $65 laying around, and then it went out of print, and now it goes for crazy money. But I did get to hear it once, and oh my God, it's like you're in the room. They even left in some of the count-ins and lead-ins. But the most of the vinyl represses you see are just the old 1988 master and some of the last vinyl repressings they made from back in the day, and they'll usually press them on like green wax or red and white wax or something. But I think this version is actually the best overall version you can get. It does have a version of the original artwork, but doesn't have anything like special on it. But what's special about this is a couple years ago, Kevin Gray went back and remastered the album from the original master tapes again. So this is, as far as I know, only the second time that you have a version of the album from the original master tapes themselves, mastered straight to disc. This was done for the really amazing quality record pressing plant and Acoustic Sounds, and that's pretty much the pinnacle of in terms of the audiophile vinyl prestige reissue world. That's about as good as it gets. Quality was started by Acoustic Sounds, and they tried to literally do every single release with like the best possible of everything. But it's a standard speed disc, so it's only a single disc. You don't have to flip it as much. But it's actually pressed on 200-gram vinyl, so it's exceptionally heavyweight. Like right now, it just literally sits in your hand. It's really sturdy. But the mastering on this is exceptional, and it doesn't have some of the little extra tweaks and stuff that the 45-speed version does, because that basically like put everything that was down on the tape, whereas this one just basically brings it back to the original program. But I think this one, for that reason, may actually be slightly better than the 45-speed version. And it's not super expensive, but I think it may have gone out of print, so it seems to like hover around the maybe $30 to $50 mark, but it's literally worth every single penny if you find one of these. You basically have to look for a mention of Kevin Gray or 200-gram vinyl, or the quality seal down here and Acoustic Sounds logo. See if you can see that. But yeah, if you can find that on a copy of this, whether it's on eBay or in a store or something, like I said, I think they stopped making these, but this thing will literally just like you feel like your ears are just melting. It's so beautiful. So I cannot recommend this highly enough, and it's something I can't, it can't turn December and start snowing without me having to literally just play this over and over and over again. But I still baby this because I don't want to, I don't want to wear it out completely. But this is definitely the version to own of this iconic, timeless score. If you really want to hear what it can sound like opened up, and especially if you have some good gear or at least a good turntable, it's like hearing all of this for the first time all over again. It's an amazing pressing. But yeah, I had to talk about that some. Because I always feel like the score, I mean, it gets talked about in music circles, but it's like it doesn't get talked about enough. And it doesn't get talked about like the special. It doesn't get shown every year, but it gets played in every store lobby or every, on every Muzak or every Starbucks or coffee house. And of course, we have to make mention and talk about the other perennial animated special that, we all have to watch every year. And they seem to keep making feature film versions that have no reason for being, but they keep trying. So, of course, talking about How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original, I always want to say if it's 1966 or 67. I think it's 66, but the original animated television adaptation of the Dr. Seuss classic. And of course, for us classic horror nerds, narrated iconically by Boris Karloff, which means they should stop trying with all of these feature remakes because they're never going to recapture this magic. And of course, this is the Laserdisc version that's paired with the original adaptation of Horton Hears a Who. The reason why I like the older masters is I grew up with all the television broadcasts where the color looked a certain way and the Grinch looked more like a yellow green. And then when they restored it for Blu-ray, it's supposedly like the original animation cells, but it looks so different from what I'm used to. So you have to hang on to versions like this to preserve the old look and feel to it. And, with this Laserdisc, you get the additional bonus feature and you get PCM mono soundtracks for both, which is really important because all the DVDs and Blu-rays up until like the most recent reissue had lossy audio track. The most recent Blu-ray, which I think is called the Ultimate Edition, it's another Warner Brothers disc where it's a stealth remaster. They just upped the bit rate and redid the encode, so it's a better encode and it's got lossless audio. So I would like to pick that up to have, the modern version in HD and check out the soundtrack, but I'm hanging on to this forever because it's exactly the way I grew up with it and a much better quality than old school broadcast. That's for sure. I did catch a minute of the broadcast this year, which was on NBC for some reason. It used to always be on ABC, I thought, but it was funny because it was, the TV screen I caught it on, it was actually pillar boxed. So it was pillar boxed inside of a 16:9 frame, and it was the new Blu-ray master. But it's like, man, pillar boxed on national network television. That's funny. So I'm not going to go over a lot of the traditional, Christmas titles that most people are going to immediately go to because I feel like, most people already know about most of those. And a lot of things I reach for are not, Christmas Vacation is meant, to be a Christmas movie, but it's not going to be something I pulled out. Like, I could picture myself watching Citizen Kane for the holidays because it's such a heartwarming movie. But it's got snow in it and it feels like the holidays, but that's just how my head works. However, this picture, I think, it's the Christmas picture that nobody talks about. It is a Christmas picture. It should be watched every year. It's one of the greatest films ever made. It's quite possibly Ernst Lubitsch's best picture, and nobody talks about it. Like it gets mentioned. It's in like a DVD collection or two, but it doesn't get trumpeted. It doesn't get shown every year on television like it should. And I have to talk about it some just so people will, hopefully hear me. But that, of course, is the 1940 masterpiece, The Shop Around the Corner, with James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan, and a whole host of some of the great character actors of classic Hollywood. Like I said before, I personally think this may be Lubitsch's best picture, and that's saying a lot because Lubitsch himself practically invented everything from the modern musical to the modern romantic comedy to the modern adult comedy. To he did so much in such a period of time. But this film, it like most Lubitsch films, it feels, but especially this one, it feels like every time once the credits end, it's its own world. It feels like you have literally walked into this tiny little gift shop in the middle of nowhere on a small downturned street off of Budapest, and the snow is falling outside. It literally feels like you've stepped into a personal world. And it does this not just from the setting, not just for having the beautiful gloss of the MGM studio production line, and not just from the fact that it has the famous Lubitsch touch of like a refined humor and a refined outlook on the world, like because it definitely does. But it's also a film that. Very much like It's a Wonderful Life, doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of life. It's very realistic in that way. You have, characters that have, moods that are more realistic. They have ups and they have downs, and they have definite downs. And it doesn't shy away from that. And that, again, makes it feel so vivid and realistic. There's moments in this film, even if you know it's going to happen every time, that really get to you emotionally at many, many different points. So again, it is very much like It's a Wonderful Life in that way. And not just from the fact that they both star Jimmy Stewart, and the Stewart performance coming from a Jimmy fan perspective is really interesting. And it's really, the last great film he was in before, before having to leave for World War II, because in 1940 you have the Philadelphia Story and you have The Shop Around the Corner, and there were some other films, in between then and actually leaving for the armed services. But this is like the last, like the true iconic one, post Mr. Smith and Philadelphia Story, and before he left for World War II. So this is the standard MGM Laserdisc. It does have a really nice PCM mono track. It's got a really lengthy short subject. I don't know if it originally played in front of this film, but it's from the same year. And then they pretty much repurposed this for the DVD, which is the same master, but a little bit cleaned up. The DVD is kind of hard to find. It was out of print for a long time. It was an early snapper case disc, which is why I never got it. But it's been put out in some collections and such. It's also reissued with the remake, which is You've Got Mail. So the whole notion of two people hating each other in real life, but secretly having a pen pal or companion they write to that they're head over heels in love with, and that turning out to be the person they can't stand in real life every day. That, of course, comes from this film, which is the original version. And that whole idea has been done to death in many different forms, even if it's not a credited remake. But if you've seen You've Got Mail and you like the concept, you should definitely go back to where it started. And they usually include DVD copies and versions of You've Got Mail. I'm hoping Warner Archive does this on Blu-ray or somebody. This is a Criterion no-brainer. I'm amazed somebody hasn't done it yet, and I think it's simply because maybe elements or it's not as well known or regarded, simply because it doesn't have the fanfare trumpeting it. So I'm doing it here. But yes, I cannot recommend this picture highly enough. It's absolutely essential for Christmas time viewing. It's really that much of a mainstay. And the first time you see it, you have to see it again and again and again, and it will get you emotionally in some places, that's for sure. And like I said, I don't put it lightly when I think this may very well be the best picture Ernst Lubitsch ever made. I put it right up there. If you had to name like the best movie certain studios made, and you think about MGM, for example, not MGM UA, but like the classic, true, standard MGM of the 30s, 40s, 50s. And you've got everything from Wizard of Oz and so on and so forth. I mean, this is up there. Like you could say this is one of the best pictures the studio ever made, and well, I say that, that's how good this picture is. So absolutely essential. You should definitely check this out if you've never seen it. So either grab this on Laserdisc or get the DVD if you can. I think it's also available in one of those TCM 4-pack sets, which I think I might pick up because if I can find it, because I think it's got other holiday titles in it. But this film is just absolutely staggering, an absolute masterpiece. And that does it for the traditional choices. The rest of these are, shall we say, like I said before, I could definitely watch Citizen Kane around Christmas. So the rest of these are kind of like that, and some are admittedly on the more modern side of trying to find Christmas alternatives. Now, this one I didn't even think about for the longest time, but before I came on, I tried to think for a minute about what would be interesting alternatives, or what is actually said at Christmas, but you don't really realize it. And then I suddenly realized, and I'm like, that's actually perfect, and it is technically a Christmas movie, so I better talk about it because, like The Shop Around the Corner, this is one of the greatest films ever made. It's better known than The Shop Around the Corner, but I still think it doesn't have the cultural heritage and well-known standing that it deserves. But once you think about it, it's actually a perfect Christmas movie. And it really fits as a Christmas movie better than it does a lot of other things, because it's one of the great films that really doesn't have a category. It defies category. And that, of course, is the 1960 Billy Wilder directed masterpiece, The Apartment. This is the beautiful Aero Academy limited box that came out a year or two ago from the new 4K restoration. I've loved this film ever since I first saw it as a kid. It's one of the great motion pictures that really gets at a sense of realism and a sense of life due to its blending of truly dark drama and bitterly ironic, humorous drama, and that mix of darkness and bitter irony is really the definition of Billy Wilder's genius, and the reason why I think you can learn more about life from from Billy Wilder than you can from practically anything else. Like I said before, this is the lovely Aero limited box that it was a bit of trouble trying to get this because everybody ordered it and then they had a lot of backlogs. But this is like one of the first Aero boxes that did the same design as Robocop. But so it's got the lovely keep case. And they do have a lot of really nice special features on here. So you can get this by itself now for very, very cheap. So you can get the disc and all the extras, and it has the original red poster artwork on the reversible sleeve. But getting the nice slip box and the book that comes along with it was, part of the whole limited deal. Now, this one actually it's a real printed hardcover book. It's not just a soft flippable book. So this is a full-on bound book with tons of great stills and a couple of really nice essay pieces. See if I can find one of the, yeah. It's hard to do backwards. But yeah, it's got several full-on article-length essays in here. And it is from the new, 4K restoration version. Show you that there. It does have the original mono track. The only downside of this release is it does have, people have, compared it to some of the others, and it's the same old track that MGM was using. So I do have the Laserdisc. I haven't actually ripped the audio and done like a waveform comparison, but I have compared the two. And I do think the Laserdisc does sound a little bit better. Like it wasn't messed around with in terms of a cleanup much, which of course is very common. And that's why I have so many Laserdiscs primarily. But that is the only real downside. Otherwise, you definitely should get the Aero release, just the standard Blu-ray over the US ones, because they're pretty much bare bones. So yeah, it's something that everybody should own, and it's one of those films that actually is perfect for Christmas, even if you don't quite realize it. Because I never really thought about it until a little while ago when I saw it, somebody reference it as a Christmas movie, and I'm like, wait a minute, That's not what. Oh. Is like when, everybody said, "Hey, Die Hard's a Christmas movie because it takes place at Christmas," and then that whole idea took hold. Similar thing with The Apartment and some of these others. But anytime I can reference The Apartment, I'm going to do it because, and in life, we'd like to think that, we're, that we would like to think that we're Cary Grant, but in reality, we're CC Baxter at best. So, as ridiculous as it sounds, I could picture myself in a total loser moment. I could totally picture not having a strainer and having to strain pasta through a tennis racket. Or having the moment when you make the TV dinner and you go and you sit down to watch something and it's just endless commercials over and over and over and over again. And every time you go to eat, it's like, next up, this is one of mine that I like to watch around the holidays. It's not a Christmas movie, but it's something that I started watching around the holidays. I like to watch it whenever it gets cold and snowy outside because it really has such beautiful, it does the film technically gets snowed in terms of the setting, and so the whole coldness becomes part of the atmosphere. And so I love watching this in winter. So I do think it's a Christmas movie because I like reading mysteries and watching mystery things at Christmas time. I've always read the classic Doyle Sherlock Holmes canon around Christmas time, so that's just how my head works. So I always try and squeeze in the Sidney Lumet's 1974 version of Murder on the Orient Express, which I think is a masterpiece, and I talked about before in my Lumet stream. This is the standard Paramount DVD with the original gorgeous Richard Amsel artwork, and I really do need to get the new Studio Canal UK Blu-ray. They did do new scans of this film and some of the other EMI Christie adaptations like Death on the Nile and I think Evil Under the Sun as well. And I need to get those because I thought they were going to be put out on Blu-ray here in the US. I didn't have to import those, but nothing's happened yet. So I may grab those when they go on sale again. But this does have a nice amount of extras. It's a multi-part featurette that makes up an hour-long documentary, and it still holds up as a transfer. Okay, it is anamorphically enhanced. It does have the original mono track, but it's definitely an older master that shows its age if you upscale it to HD. But it's still just an incredible piece of work. It's old school romance on the highest scale. Definitely the best Christie adaptation that's ever been. They shouldn't even bother with ever remaking this, but they keep doing it. But yeah, I think it's an unheralded masterpiece, and I adore watching this around the holidays. Now to get on to a couple of the now well-known, tried and true, they're actually holiday movies, alternative choices. So, of course, most people talk about Die Hard, but a lot of people forget that Shane Black absolutely loves Christmas, and so Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie. It is set at Christmas. There are Christmas trees. There is a car that goes through a Christmas tree. There are Christmas lights. And if you're going to watch Die Hard, you might as well watch Lethal Weapon as well. And then I always wind up watching all the main sequels as well. So it's perfect to fire up around the holidays if you need a bit of gunpowder and explosions in your holiday celebrations. So this is the Warner Brothers Letterbox reissue on Laserdisc. This is the theatrical cut with the Dolby Stereo. And this is actually a pretty nice transfer. The older ones were all open matted. This, of course, is the one film that was shot in flat spherical, and the rest were shot in a scope anamorphic. So you get the older versions. It's not pan and scan. It's just open matted. But this one's harder to find, and if you want to actually track down the widescreen version, and it does have the original Dolby Stereo, which isn't on later releases. So it's cool to have. But I will say I do. If you compare the audio tracks, the later 5.1 remix is so much beefier. Not in a bad way. It feels so much more impressive that this, it sounds, a lot more. I'm trying to think of a good descriptive word. it doesn't sound crappy, but it's less bombastic, you know. And of course, Lethal Weapon did get a 70 millimeter blow up. It did get a 6-track audio mix. So I don't know if the later mix is from that, but it very well could be. I also the 1 through 3 got the director's cut DVDs, which Richard Donner apparently didn't like. They were not director's cuts. They were just putting extra scenes back in. And on 2 and 3, they were just like very minor, just added back in like a minute. And I thought those were fine. I don't know why they took those out in the first place, but there are significant scenes in this film in the original that are only in that director's cut. And then the Blu-rays came out and he insisted that they carry the theatrical versions. And I think the scenes in the so-called director's cut DVD are really essential. And I miss them because they used to broadcast that version and I grew up with that version. And so every time I watch this or the Blu-ray, I really miss those sequences. Primarily the extended sequences with Riggs in his, delirium in his, beach trailer, and then the scene with the school sniper where Riggs just goes completely in alone against the sniper. But most of all, I absolutely love the scene in the director's cut where he picks up a prostitute simply to go and watch the Three Stooges because that's the depth of his loneliness. It's just it's a little small thing, but it's such a character moment, and I really miss those things. But in terms of Laserdisc, this is definitely the best version in the US. In Japan, they actually did put out those director's cut versions on a late release trilogy set, but they don't have AC3. They've just got ProLogic 2.0, but that's usually very expensive, very pricey. But if you just want the original film on Laserdisc, this would be the version to look for. Just try to find this version. It's got this sort of gray-white background. The older versions have a black one. And of course, it's got the widescreen banner in the top. And that's how you easily tell them apart online. So, of course, to bring up Die Hard, everybody's favorite Christmas movie nowadays. It used to be if you wanted to watch an action movie at Christmas, they would just like throw you out of the house. It's like, no, it's Christmas. It's supposed to be Christmassy. But of course, nowadays it's pretty much accepted. A lot of theaters will do special Die Hard showings around the holiday season now. My local art house is now turning it into, they seem to do it every year. They just show a DCP of Die Hard. I'd love to go see a print of Die Hard somewhere, but apparently no one anywhere near me is doing that. So this is the THX AC3 Laserdisc remaster that they did. And they, of course, did the whole trilogy at the time. It's got a gorgeous rendering of the original poster artwork. I do have the original letterbox pressing as well, which, picture quality wise, it's a bit softer. It was pretty much the first letterbox Fox disc that that the studio ever did. But that has a 2.0 ProLogic encoded mix on it that seems to be the original 35 millimeter Dolby Stereo release. And Die Hard got a 70 millimeter blow up sometime in its original run with a beefed up audio mix. And that seems to be what they used for this and everything onwards, because they made the 5.1 mix for this version. So I do think the original disc is important to have. And I do think the color on it is actually probably a little bit more theatrically accurate, but it's not as good in terms of picture quality because it's, 6 years earlier. But it does have that really awesome alternate audio track. However, this release, if you're just wanting one Laserdisc and wanting the best one, you can grab this for dirt cheap. There is a DTS version that gives you the full 1536 kilobits per second DTS quality, but it's extremely rare. And getting the DTS Die Hard disc for 1 through 3 will usually cost you about $80 a pop, which is crazy talk. So you can pick up this version in AC3. It's also got the same mix in ProLogic 2.0 PCM. So if you don't have a RF demodulator, you can still enjoy the more bombastic audio. It's worth it for the lovely gatefold alone, with these really great liner notes, really great usage of the gatefold panel. This is when Fox really stepped up their packaging game. And even though these have been surpassed by later versions, I will never get rid of my Die Hard Trilogy LDs because they're just great LDs. Well, not the Master on Die Hard 3. That one's... And it made an even worse DVD. Like the picture quality on that one's got so much DNR and edge enhancement. It's not super pretty, but the packaging is great. But that's the that's the only downside. but here's the rear, and they all match. They all go side by side on the shelf. You can frame them; they look beautiful, and it's nice that they made them match. But yeah, this is an essential LD. Every collection should have this. It's just a great disc. Shouldn't set you back more than $3 or $5, and it's a great way to watch the film. Although the Blu-ray is really good, and it's got the same mix that's on here, but in lossless. And then the new 4K version is really great, and actually looks a lot like the old 1989 first Laserdisc letterbox copy. That would be the version to go for. I do believe it has this same 5.1 remix. So the audio is also good. It's one of the few 4K titles that's actually good. They didn't really screw anything up. But I've been hoping they do a box set, so I haven't picked it up yet because I'm just waiting for, Die Hard 2 at least, I'd love to have 1 through 3, come out in 4K. But that being said, the Blu-rays, let me see. I think I've got it here somewhere. The Blu-rays have been repackaged to death, so you can get them for nothing. The best version overall, if you don't care about A Good Day to Die Hard, which I don't because it was terrible, is this one, the 25th anniversary collection with the broken glass shot. You get this nice textured slipcase, but this actually has a bonus disc with some interview pieces with original cast and crew that's not in any other version. So even though it's the standard, not so good for your disc slip book with the cardboard pages, it's actually, not bad on the disc. And you get 1 through 4 with the special bonus disc that's not in any other release. So this is important, and you can usually find it for dirt cheap. So if you get the newest box, it doesn't have the bonus disc. It comes with the crappy sequel everybody hate. But that one does come with the unrated version of Die Hard 4. So I have to go buy that darn box just for the unrated version of Die Hard 4 that's better yet worse than the theatrical cut of Die Hard 4. So there you go. But anyway, the Blu-rays for 1 through 3 are all really good. So if you don't want to go through jump to Laserdisc, you can grab the Blu-rays and rest assured. But the 4K of the original film is really, really great. I'm just hoping they do a box set because they really need to. Then sticking with action series, and this one is another one. Once you think about it, it is a Christmas movie. So for me, if I had to make my own personal alternative Christmas movie choice, it would be this one. It would not be Die Hard. It would not be Lethal Weapon. Those are fun and all, but this one really appeals to not only my sense of humor, but my sense of I love this because it's so messed up in so many different ways, and I think it's a masterpiece, and I watch it every year anyway. So of course it's a perfect Christmas film. It's got some of the most beautiful photographed snowy streets you'll ever see in your life because the sets were refrigerated. And that, of course, is, in my opinion, the best thing Tim Burton has ever done in his entire career, Batman Returns. This is the best alternate Christmas movie in terms of you get everything, and it's a truly adult movie. And yeah, it's always a treat to go back to this. I always find new stuff in it. I grew up with it. I've seen it a million times. It never gets old. But then again, I have a huge attachment to the original 4 Batman film series, so I admit that. And I've done so much research into their production histories. I'm always like scouring for more information. But anyway, this is the original US letterbox Laserdisc copy with gorgeous rendering of the original 3-character artwork, but then using the rest of the jacket as all nice and open, but flanked by these penguins. It's got a nice glossiness to it. So it's a really impressive Laserdisc jacket. Gives you the original poster art, but it's, reconfigured to really use the whole 12-inch jacket. Of course, the VHS was just the regular, 3 heads in a row. And the rear uses the same art as the VHS, but it's nicely spread over a 12-inch jacket. The film is spread onto 3 sides, with side 3 being CAV. And the letterbox transfer is actually really nice. The color's pretty good. But like Batman 89, this has been brightened up quite a bit So it's not as dark as the theatrical release prints. But that aside, the color's really good. It has the 2.0 Dolby Surround stereo track that played in most theaters. This film was the first film to be officially released in Dolby 5.1 AC3, but that only played in your premiere theaters in New York, LA. It wasn't everywhere. So most people saw it in Dolby Stereo still. So the only way to hear that track is to get this Laserdisc. And admittedly, if you compare this to other versions, it's the same mix. It's just kind of it's obviously a bit more constrained because it's matrixed audio, not discrete audio. But I do like the sound of it. It does feel different, and I have seen a print of this that did carry this same soundtrack. So it's the same version I got to actually finally hear in the theater, and of course it's the same track that was on the VHS tape. But I didn't have a hi-fi stereo growing up. I'm sorry, hi-fi VCR growing up, as much as I actually begged my parents to get a better VCR because I was a geek even then. The only downside is this Laserdisc is pretty notorious for having laser rot. I actually have two copies. My first copy had a little bit of speckling, but it played through. It didn't have any problems. And then I actually did find a rot-free copy. This was pressed by the DADC Sony plant. So if you do get this on Laserdisc, you do need to check it. It doesn't seem to have like full-on death rot for a lot of them, like say Air Force One or The Fugitive. But if you get through it and you just have a little bit of speckling, then you be forewarned. But if you want to go through enough copies like I did, I just got really lucky and found one that was perfect all the way through, and it seemed like it's a different batch or something. But I was just amazed. I was just like, Batman and Robin also has rot issues. So Batman 89, Batman Forever are perfect, fine Pioneer pressings, and then Batman Returns and Batman and Robin are potential rotters. So do keep that in mind. But yeah, this is my own favorite alternate Christmas movie suggestion for a movie that everybody knows, but they don't think about it actually being a Christmas movie, because this actually is. It's the only Christmas movie where you have Christopher Walken handing out Christmas presents. That should sell it, It's you could repackage it as a holiday edition in the store with a little button that you press, and it just has Christopher Walken's voice. I wish I could hand out just more than expensive baubles. I wish I could hand out world peace and unconditional love. That's probably my favorite Christopher Walken performance as Max Schreck. It's so completely full of in jokes, and just the more you get into Batman Returns, the more you realize it's just deliciously messed up in so many different ways. So that being said, now this one also is I know I said Batman Returns would probably be my alternative choice, but this one it's also like they kind of go hand in hand. And again, it's another movie. It's very dark. It's not a movie you really think about being a Christmas movie, but it totally is. And once you realize that, you're like, it's perfect for Christmas. And then you realize it's not for everybody. So you probably shouldn't put this on at a holiday party, especially with the kids around. Although I wanted to see this movie when I was a kid and I was not allowed to, and I never got over not getting able to see it in the theater. I didn't care about the subject matter. I just wanted to see it. And then I was finally able to see it many years later, and I was much older. And I'm still mad I didn't see it at the original release. But I have seen a print of it, which is amazing, because as good as, this Blu-ray is better than the DVD, but it's still one of the films that needs a new transfer so badly, and I'm awaiting a 4K announcement, like with fingers crossed. But that, of course, is the masterpiece, Eyes Wide Shut. I don't have the individual Blu-ray, just have it inside of this admittedly really nice and lovely limited Kubrick box, which just repackaged all of the Warner Blu-rays with some nice extras. So I'm talking about Eyes Wide Shut in particular, which is a Christmas movie. But again, it's not for everybody. It is very arty, and it's definitely not for children, but it's Eyes Wide Shut. It's such a work of complete. This is hard to hold with one hand backwards. It's such a work of complete intelligence, and really probes all kinds of really interesting and thought-provoking questions. It's not a picture you can just put on in the background. Definitely not. And most people know it for the ostensibly the more naughty bits, like they would for a Clockwork Orange, and kind of not look at what the whole overall story and picture is supposed to mean. But it's definitely, I think it's actually a really good choice for a Christmas movie, because again, fitting in with the whole idea of it coming at the end of the year and being about the death of one year and the rebirth of self and a new year. Um, and what the whole Christmas spirit is supposed to be about. And of course, every character has, a Christmas tree somewhere in the background, and totally is just doing their own thing, and as messed up as it could possibly be. But Christmas just kind of lingers over as a shadow over everything. So I guess there's also the theme of it taking place in the over commercialized Christmas landscape, which of course, this was 1998, 1999, and compared to now, it's even worse. So it goes even further. Let me see if there's a. I don't remember if this has an individual. Yeah, it's just a. They made this whole box, and it's just got. It's got some nice art cards and a little book inside, but it's just a digibook. And no, sorry, digibook. It's a digi fold out, which admittedly looks really nice. This is what they should have made the package the first time, but it's just the standard release Warner Brothers Blu-rays with all of their various problems and stuff, but all in one nice place instead of having to buy them individually. I do like the custom art they made for these. And, I like the package. I like what they did. I just wish it wasn't the same old problematic Blu-rays. But since Warner Brothers has done both 2001 and The Shining in 4K with some really nice transfer results, they're not 100% perfect, but they're a hell of a lot better than these old Blu-rays that were based on HD DVD era encodes back in 2006. I had the DVD set first because I bought these. I had to buy them on DVD back in the day because I didn't have HD capability. I was still in high school, so I had to run to the store. I got them on release day, and I saw the Blu-ray box next to the HD DVD box, and then the DVD box. They were all side by side. I'm like, well, I got to get the DVD one day, and then little did I know they were all screwy transfers anyway. Let me see if I can. I think there's a page on Eyes Wide Shut here in the book, which, with so many Kubrick releases and, art books and coffee table books and things, you've seen a lot of stuff, and it's hard to be impressed, but I do quite like this set. Here are the on-set stills they included for Eyes Wide Shut. The printing on this is nice, and it's actually hardcover bound. So if you do want the standard Blu-rays and you want the exclusive extras that are in this set, there's a couple sandwiched in on one of the Blu-rays. So that was the reason why everybody had to go and buy this for, completion purposes, and then sell off their old copies. But outside of that, it's the old 2007 Blu-rays. But anyway, Eyes Wide Shut is the one film of the Kubrick library that Warner Brothers owns that needs the new transfer most badly, because it has a really, if you see a theatrical print of it, it's really grainy. It has a absolutely heart-stoppingly gorgeous usage of especially primary color. The color is very bold. They pushed the image such that it made the grain even more prevalent, and it's like one of the most beautiful examples of reveling in all the analog glories of photography. It's not just grainy, it's like soups of grain, and it makes the experience all the more vivid. And as the Tom Cruise character just delves into these various worlds of the darkness he finds in humanity, and it makes it feel, like I said about the shop around the corner, it's its own individual world. It's like you start this film, and like for 2.5 hours, you are in this zone of just of an almost dreamlike state, which is what I think the film was intended to provoke. So anyway, that's why I think Eyes Wide Shut is a excellent choice for a Christmas movie, but again, not something that most people are going to think of or turn to. But I really, really hope that it gets done up in 4K. I'm sure Warner Brothers is going to get around to it because they're doing titles one by one, but it is the one that needs it most, because This Blu-ray is good, but it doesn't have all of that grain, and especially the color is not like the print was. I always read about it, but then when I finally got to see it a couple years ago, it was like, oh my god, they weren't kidding. This is even more than I ever expected. So it's better than the DVDs, of course. It is uncut and uncensored. The first US DVD was the theatrical release print version with the CGI figures inserted everywhere. It does, of course, have the change in the audio, like all home video versions do. The song that goes during the giant mansion sequence, everybody remembers, was changed due to public complaints and complaints that it perhaps offended some religious views. So that's been changed on all video versions, but that's pretty much understandable. But yeah, it's the one out of all of these films that needs a new transfer the most. So hopefully it happens at some point. But I still do really like this box packaging. It's nice. It's a nice display piece. I picked it up for pretty cheap used. So if you're looking to just get the old 2007 Blu-rays, it's a nice way to do so. Get some of the exclusive extras. Let's see. I got one more. So this last one, just to get something, post, something actually this century in. Again, this is another movie. Most people don't realize it's a Christmas movie, but when you realize that Shane Black made it, he can't help but get Christmas in there somewhere because, he apparently is a giant Christmas person. So, and I think this film is really underrated too. I love this film. I've seen it ever since the first time I saw it. It started out life. It was really an indie movie. It didn't really play a lot of places. It, got picked up by Warner Brothers, but it kind of came and went. But it's really kind of become a cult movie over the years. And when you find somebody that knows it, you don't just like this movie. You either have never seen it or you really love it. Like that's the extremes. And that is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This is a heck of a Christmas movie. Again, written and directed by Shane Black. This was really his comeback movie. In a lot of ways, it was the comeback movie for Robert Downey Jr., in terms of having a really great leading role. It really helped to bring Val Kilmer back in people's minds for the people who actually saw this, because, again, it was not very well distributed or seen when it came out. I didn't get to see it until I saw the DVD. Actually, it was just it was at the wasn't an art house theater, but it was a chain theater where they show more of the independent films and foreign films, it's out in the middle of nowhere, and and you got to go to like these random times, and then stuff is gone in like less than a week. So I remember the advertisement, and I just didn't get to go see it. But then I saw the DVD, and I was just crying with laughter, which I still do. This is also great for people like myself who are great noir buffs and especially hard-boiled detective fiction nerds like myself. The film is broken up into individual. Well, it's not really broken up, but it does have chapter headings that come up in sort of a serial-comedic way, and all of them are Raymond Chandler titles. And the film has a hard-boiled narration, but is completely fourth wall breaking by Robert Downey Jr.'s character. And it basically, Shane Black takes his own buddy formula from Lethal Weapon and just turns it on its head and just inverts the whole thing. And it is one of the best mismatched pairings of completely different temperaments, with RDJ paired with Val Kilmer. It's one of my favorite pairings of actors in history. It is a wickedly funny black comedy that's in the guise of a detective thriller / buddy cop film. It's got hysterically quotable jokes. It really rewards repeat viewings, and it's got a sense that definitely shows it was written by somebody who's been through the industry meat grinder and is basically just doing this not just because he wants to, but also it's like there's a little bit of, I'm going to get back at you guys now. And a couple years ago, he made a sort of, it's not a sequel, but it's so similar. And that was The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, but set in the 70s. But it's the same sort of idea. And I hope they make a sequel at some point. I've been hoping they would. And I was kind of a bit miffed that they made The Nice Guys, because I'm like, I just wanted a sequel to this. Like, I don't want you to recreate it. But of course, Val's had health issues in the interim, but he's going to be in the new Top Gun film. Hope springs eternal. Like if they announced they were going to do a sequel to this, I would like whatever you need, whatever I have to buy. It's like I'll do it now. But I can't recommend this film highly enough, and this would be a great thing. It's got a freshness and originality to it, and it, again, the way it plays around with these tropes that Shane Black himself helped to establish is just really fun and interesting, and it's just like it ticked off all of my interest boxes. And I going in, I didn't know it was going to be quite so completely what's the word I'm looking for, not satirical, but it's snarky. It's completely snarky. I think it's the best performance Robert Downey Jr. has ever given. I adore everything in this film. I wish it was better known. I wish it had won awards back in 2005. It's that good. It's one of my favorite films of this century. It's absolutely fantastic and it's wickedly, wickedly funny. But yeah, that's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It's technically a Christmas movie, so take of that what you will. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my mixture of holiday suggestions and alternatives and what they look like on home video and such. Oh, I should mention that. I forgot. Just to mention quickly, Warner Brothers Blu-ray, pretty bare bones. It's only got lossy audio, but this is the only release there is unless you get the DVD. But what's cool about this, they actually recorded a commentary with Val and RDJ, and they just constantly, take the piss out of each other for 2 hours. So it's basically like you get to just hear them goofing off for another 2 hours, and it's a great commentary. It's kind of reminiscent of the way a lot of people love the John Carpenter, Kurt Russell commentaries where they just literally, talk about anything but the movie. So it's very similar to that. It's a really great commentary. So that makes up for it not having extras or stuff. And the picture quality is actually really good on this. It looks pretty nice in HD, and it would look even better if they remastered it, or they could do 4K. This was a film shoot. I do believe. I don't think it had any digital effects in it. But yeah, it's not a popular title. It's hard sometimes to even get this Blu-ray. It's not like in stores and stuff. So I had to actually track it down. But it's not, thankfully, not out of print or anything. But yeah, it's a good Blu-ray presentation. It's got the really cool commentary. I do wish it had lossless audio, but it was a lower budgeted film, and the 5.1 AC3 on here does serve it pretty well. It's like at the 640 kilobits per second bit rate, so it is better than DVD slightly. But yeah, that's the tech specs. Forgot to mention that. So yeah, that does it for the Christmas movies section. And like I said, this was a more impromptu stream anyway. So it's definitely going to be on the shorter side. It's not not one of my past 5-hour marathon sessions. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of go through some of those. And again, I figured next week we'll talk about capper titles, because that's a whole thing to and of itself. So that's why It's a Wonderful Life is not in this batch, because that one for me is like the summation of Capper's work. It's like everything he had done before kind of repurposed and reinvented and like notched up to another level, but all in one film, and that's why it's so iconic. So I figured talk about those next week, so I can talk about them in successive order. So yeah, that's the presentation. Yeah. Got some comments. Let's catch up on some of those. Best transfer to get for Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. That's probably going to be the Eureka Masters of Cinema release for the encoding. Kino did the Blu-ray here. It's the MGM master. I think they made an HD master based off of what they did for DVD. But yeah, currently for what we have, your choice is between Kino and Masters of Cinema. Masters of Cinema encodes disc better, so it's going to have a better bit rate. It's better across the board, and I've been needing to import it. I really do need to import it now that I'm finally region free. I'm just picking up titles here and there. But yeah, I have the DVD, I have the Laserdisc, I have the Kino Blu-ray. I'm going to get the Masters of Cinema Blu-ray. there's not a whole lot of variation between those. They all do have the extras of what's left of the deleted segments. And because the film has such an intricate photography style, it does have a lot of diffusion and softness. It's not going to be like so sharp and look pretty in HD. It's not meant to. But I do think like a modern 4K scan would work wonders, but nobody's going to do that in the interim. But for what we have, I think the best overall is the Masters of Cinema because it's encoded better. But all of the versions are good. So at least there's that. At least we have nice letterboxed editions with good transfers, and they have extras and they talk about the deleted sections and such. So what versions of Christmas Carol do you have on disc? Oh, doggone it, I forgot it. I forgot. I have okay, Ryan's got the 1938 version on Laserdisc and the 51 version on DVD. I just have the Alistair Sim 1951 version, but I have the Roan Laserdisc. I should have pulled that. I meant to, and I totally forgot. Talking about Christmas movies, and I forget A Christmas Carol. Go figure. I've seen the 51 version several times. That's the one it seems most people like. I've seen the 30s version at least once, and I should go back and rewatch all of them. And then Muppet Christmas Carol, even though it's a children's movie, I mean it's Michael Caine as Scrooge, and the production design is really good. So that's actually good. Because I remember growing up with that, and it's got really good production design, and it's Michael Caine. It's like, come on, it doesn't get better than that. But yeah, probably I would probably say the 1951 Alistair Sim version is probably the best version overall. But I'm not too experienced with all the various different versions. And FX is promoting; they're doing their new television version where they've made it look like a modern horror movie. It's Guy Pearce walking around. I'm like, why does this look like some steampunk CGI laden horror movie? Where I thought this was supposed to be Dickens. Like, okay. So there's gonna be that too, and I don't know what that's gonna be like, but it just the trailers make it look like a horror movie. So yeah, sorry I forgot to pull that. I should have pulled that and had it in my stack here. I would go get it, but I have to go dig over there. Brian just watched both Die Hard 1 and 2 on LD. Congratulations. Even though I really do like the Blu-rays, there's something about watching those on LD. I've had those for they were some of the first discs I ever got, so I have an attachment to them, and I really like watching those. I also like the older versions of both. Die Hard 2, the first Fox widescreen version, like Die Hard 1. The color's a little bit more subdued and maybe a bit more theatrically accurate, and has that 2.0 Dolby Surround mix, so it sounds a bit different. So I like watching those sometimes as a nice alternate. So I have both versions, and they're all super cheap. So yeah, Die Hard 1 and 2 really have had good runs on home video. They don't have bad releases. I think for those two, the only problem was Die Hard 2. Sometimes the color timing changes a little bit. Like the 2-disc DVD was a lot brighter, but not bad. It just varied. But outside of that, they've had good releases across the board. Die Hard 3 had the bad transfer on Laserdisc, and then the DVD was literally just awful with edge enhancement. It's like one of the worst edge enhancement DVDs ever. But the AC3 track's great. The extras are great, and but that's one that I think you have to watch on Blu-ray because the transfer is so much better. I was like, the whole reason why I got the set on Blu-ray is for Die Hard 3. Like that was the main reason. It wasn't because Die Hard 4 had amazing picture and sound quality. It wasn't because of getting 1 and 2 in 1080p. Like that was great and all, but I was getting the better master of Die Hard 3 finally. And I didn't have to watch the edge enhancement DVD from hell. Yeah, that's when you know you're a video nerd. You're buying a box set for not the best movie in the set, but it's going to have a new transfer that's better than the old one. That's when you know. So yeah, that's what I had set aside for today, and some of the getting more into the holiday spirit of things. It takes me forever to get through all of my October classic horror films, so I'm just finishing it up now with those because trying to squeeze in 60 to 100 classic horror films. It takes a while. So yeah, I transition over and usually watch some of these or a mixture of these, and then sprinkle in some mysteries here and there. Um, well, I didn't think I was going to end this early. I guess I can go through some of these other. It's not a lot, but I can talk about them. Some of the other pickups I was just going to save for next week. But speaking of that, I got these and I was excited to go through them for the holidays because again, I for some reason I associate mysteries with winter and Christmasness. So I guess it's perfect to talk about them now. So this is a series I know about. I've seen pieces of, but it's a convoluted history, both in terms of studios that produced them and then lead actor changes and such. So I figured since they did do these really nice restored versions for DVD, and they're probably not coming to Blu-ray soon, if now ever, because Disney bought Fox. I figured now's the time to give it a whirl, and so I'm going to start digging into the Charlie Chan series for the first time. And like I said, I know of the character, I know of the history, I've seen pieces of all the different films, but there's so many. Figured I'd start at the beginning. So I started picking up the lovely restored box sets Fox did, and these are like astonishingly cheap if you look for them on eBay. If you're okay with a few dings on the box and stuff, they are really, really cheap. They're loaded with extras, and I was also surprised I didn't realize so many of the Fox films were actually lost. So they've included, some of. There's one version that is a simultaneously shot Spanish version because the English version is lost. Some segments of some of the silent Chan films, but I'm really excited to finally go through these. So this is the volume 1 that Fox did back in about 2006 or so, I believe. And so these are in rough chronological order. They packaged all the surviving Warner Oland films in 3 volumes. So I do like the art style. It's nice and stylized, and then you get full on keep cases for each film with custom artwork, and then they even have a little insert with the revamped artwork, and all the art matches on all of these, which is really, really nice. So I figured, if I'm gonna go in and try these, I'm just gonna go whole hog and start at the beginning. And these are loaded with extras that are, really, really, above the usual level of extras, especially for catalog titles. So each of these volumes that Fox did has four discs in it. Some of them have more than one feature because, like I said before, some of them have silent versions and some of the existing materials. So Fox actually went through and tried to restore each of these because they were extraordinarily damaged due to constant reprinting, television airing. They were all missing pieces, and there aren't too many Laserdiscs out there because Fox did a couple of the Warner Oland films as double features in the Laserdisc era, but then stopped. And I think it was simply due to there not being good elements. And they did a number more, it seems, on VHS, but that was about it. So these DVDs are really the first time these films were presented in some state of restoration and some official capacity. So show you the rear as well. So this is volume 1. Which is usually the easiest one to find, but yeah, you can find these if you're patient. Like this literally cost me like $3.50. So I was like, wow. Because I remember when these came out, I remember seeing reviews and everybody talking about how much work they had put into these. So it's really amazing what you can find from the DVD era if you really want to start digging into more things. And again, sometimes it's going to come up and be a bit dinged up here and there, but for the price you pay, it's really astonishing, especially when these things came out, they were 40, 50, 60 bucks a pop. So this is the volume 2. It's colored in blue with the same style artwork, so they all match very nicely on the shelf, which will be very, very cool. And this features the next 4 films or so. It's in rough chronological order. But some of these they only had to work on before they put out the box set. So if you were trying to do chronologically, you'll have to jump back and forth a little bit between boxes. But the same setup with 4 keep cases, each with a lovely insert and custom artwork. And again, a really nice selection of special features and some restoration comparisons. So I'm really excited to dig through these for the next month or two to really, finally see the Chan films. And then I also picked up the third and final volume of Warner Olin films. This is volume 3, again with matching artwork. And some of these films are also great for coming after being a classic horror nerd, because they have I know Bela Lugosi is in at least one of them, and Karloff is in one, if not 2 of them. So you get that bonus as well. And then being from the classic studio era, that they're always going to be jam packed with various great character actors and familiar faces. And again, these are loaded with special features, just like the first 2 volumes. So again, I figured, if I'm going to start this, I'm just gonna go for it. And these are exceptionally cheap on eBay these days. As a matter of fact, I actually, when I got 3, it was a lot that came bundled with the MGM box. And you say, MGM, I thought you were talking about Fox. Well, these films are complicated because not only do they change lead actors several times, but they change studios. So, as far as I know, pretty much all of the surviving Chan films have been released, but you got to jump back and forth between studios. And I got started on this quest because I picked up the MGM Laserdisc box of Chan films that, I didn't realize at the time that they were like sort of in the middle of the overall scope of films. And they all star Sidney Toler, who was the second main actor after Warner Oland. So bundled with volume 3 came the MGM DVD box, which basically is that Laserdisc box, but they're masters pressed on DVD. But it's a pretty nice little package. It's known as the Chanthology box. And they have this embossed etching of the Charlie Chan caricature there. And they have some of the, classic whimsy-filled Charlie Chan sayings actually written on the box, which is really cute. Even though these are pretty much just that the transfers on that Laserdisc box put on a DVD. It's a really nice package, and they have this really cool backing here with this sort of Asian looking font and blood red color, and again, more embossing. There's the Chan face again. So this is a really cool little package, I have to say. And then each film is given its own keep case with new artwork and then the matching text. Try to get some glare off of it there. And then you have some colorized stills of Sidney Toler's face, and some of them looks quite comical. But yeah, like I said, it was a lot of discs. So I just wanted volume 3, and I was just going to watch my Laserdisc box. So now I can compare these to the MGM Laserdisc set. But they're all nicely packaged with nice artworks and everything. But there's no special features or anything. It's just I believe these are single layered. I don't think they're dual layered because they're all basically an hour long. So if they were to have reissued this, it could have been slimmed down. After this point, you have to jump back and forth. Warner Brothers released a Chan box set under the TCM banner that has some more films, and then Warner Archive has done some more. But I figured this would be a cool way to start, and something to some new mystery films to enjoy over the holiday season or so. But yeah, so I figured now is time enough to finally really dig into the Charlie Chan series. And once I do this, I think my next step, I would like to finally try the Mr. Moto films with Peter Lorre, which are supposed to be more of a spy thriller, actually. So they sort of deviate from being straight mysteries and sort of become a proto. Almost a lot of things indicate they do have quite a bit of Bond flavor. So the fact that they all star Peter Lorre, that's just like that sounds like catnip to me. But a lot of these films probably are not going to get reissued or talked about very much because there is the discussion that goes on of the negative sides of the stereotype that they promote and things like that, or that they are inherently racist without necessarily intending to be. And with the Chan films and the Mr. Moto films, there is a constant back and forth, it seems, in the literary and critical circles that goes back and forth. Are these good? Are these bad? Even if not intended to be negative, they promote stereotypes somewhat, so that's technically bad. So I don't think they're going to get much distribution, unfortunately, unless they find a way to like put a disclaimer on it or something, as they do with a lot of classic animation that kind of is in that gray area, which is a fine way to do stuff if you're going to finally release stuff. If you have to put a disclaimer on it, that's totally fine. It's understandable, that this is from a different time period, even if it's not like seemingly really offensive, it can be considered offensive. So that's why I think these are not, the Chan films especially, are not going to come to Blu-ray anytime soon. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to dig into next. So but yeah, outside of that, that's kind of what I'm digging into, and then I'm gonna be revisiting some of these Christmas titles, and then I always do the Capra films like leading up to Christmas Day itself. So that's my usual Christmas viewing pleasure. So do you guys have any questions, comments, or anything before we wrap this up and call it an evening? I think this is about the shortest I've gone in a while. So I want to thank everybody for coming into this stream. I know I always try to at least announce or do the posting a couple hours in advance, but I know I haven't been doing regular streams for a while, but I just wanted to at least get some stuff in there before the end of the year while I had a chance. So I realized I was going to have a chance tonight. So I'm like, heck, I'm going to do it, even if it's a lot shorter. So, yeah. So if you guys have any more questions, comments, or anything, so I can get to those before I before I close it down for the night. And Garrick's never made it to the end before live. Oh man. Yeah. See, this was always my intended thing. I always thought I was gonna do a few live streams here and there, and they'd be like, like most, they'd be 2, maybe 3 hours. But then, yeah, I get to talking, and then I get to talking some more, and then I start talking some more, and then realize my throat is totally just beyond dry. Hello, Quentin. How are you? Oh, It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, I talked a little bit about the new master, but basically, I'm saving It's a Wonderful Life discussion for next week, because I'm going to talk about Capra classics, because I always watch the main Capra classics and leading up to It's a Wonderful Life, which I always try and save for like Christmas Day or Christmas Eve or Boxing Day. But yeah, I did talk a little bit about. Talked a little bit about the new 4K master. This is the new remastered Blu-ray with that new master and some new extras. So in terms of transfer, it's a lot better than the old Blu-ray that I've railed against for years and years. But in terms of talking about the film, I figured I'd save that for next week, because I'm gonna talk all about the main Capra classics of the 30s and 40s, which really lead up and build up to It's a Wonderful Life. Because especially if you watch all of them in order, it was like each one, it kind of revamps some things and builds on it some more in the next one. And then It's a Wonderful Life is literally like the culmination of all of those. So a lot of things that people know and recognize and love from It's a Wonderful Life, I wish they knew that there were other films that like are the precursors to that. So, but yeah, so next week we'll talk about the main Capra classics, like it happened one night, and Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and Lost Horizon, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, You Can't Take It With You, even Arsenic and Old Lace, which is great, and Meet John Doe, which is really, really good. but yeah, all of those really kind of build into the fabric of It's a Wonderful Life. So that's why I figured it'd be perfect to talk about that next week with all the other Capra titles. Plus, I can't look at one Capra film without thinking about the other main ones and stuff. So, but in terms of thoughts, you can't get enough of it. It is. It's the apex of Capra as a director and producer, and it was him getting to work independently for really it was technically his second attempt trying to work independently, but without studio interference. And it's a true shame that it was not financially successful, and the whole director partnership independent company Liberty Films really kind of fell apart in that immediate post-war period because it wasn't a success. But that's that, and because it builds off of all of the earlier Capra titles, that's what helps to make it so special. And because it was the first film that they were making after coming back from the war, it was like, this one has to be good, it has to have meaning, like otherwise what are we doing? So those are the elements that really make it not only iconic but make it so special. And also because it disappeared into the public domain for many years, and it turned up on PBS airings because they didn't have to pay for the rights to show it, so they would show it, and that allowed people to actually not only finally see it, but see it with other people and see it at the Christmas season and this time of year, and it became a tradition in that way. And of course now the rights have come back in, and Paramount has the rights, and NBC picked up the airing rights back in the 90s, so it became more of an official thing. But it was because of that 20-30 years of it being public domainness, and people found it for themselves, and that's what built up the fan base. But in terms of transfer, before this 4K release, my favorite one was the old Criterion Laserdisc box set. That one looks exactly like the 35 millimeter prints you can still see occasionally at art houses. I think it's based off of a fine grain master or something. The later Republic discs had digital audio, so they had better audio. The old Blu-ray had some DNR, and I've never liked the look of it, so I'm always watching my old Laserdisc copies. Plus, it didn't have very good audio. So this new release, even though I'm not 4K capable, unfortunately, I had to buy the Blu-ray separately because the 4K only has the old terrible colorized abomination. This one also has that as well, but you have to buy this separately to get the new Blu-ray of the 4K restoration. So yeah, I'm gonna really go through it with a fine-tooth comb, so next week I can talk about it transfer wise in terms of really comparing it to my other versions. Because most people haven't really gone out and done a lot of comparison, nor had they gone out and gotten like every major Laserdisc version, because I have problems. So, so yeah, in a nutshell, that's me on It's a Wonderful Life, and I'm obsessed with it, as everybody should be, and it's amazing always, and I still quote it endlessly. And Uncle Billy, what are the three greatest sounds in the world? Breakfast is served, lunch is served, dinner is served. No. Train whistle, boat whistle, and airplane engine. Oh. Let's see. Chance to see any of the 4K Star Wars transfers on Disney Plus. I did actually. I saw. I knew somebody who had Disney Plus, and I was like, "Hey, can I scrub through this to see the new Greedo edit?" And they were like, "The what?" And because they were literally looking at it on their phone, and I scrubbed through it and went to the Cantina scene and the Greedo remix, and they were like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Greedo scene version 5, guys." There is a really good YouTube video. I'm trying to remember the guy's name, and I'm totally blanking on it. I think the YouTube channel is literally HDTV Test, but I believe his name is Vincent Theo. I may be wrong, but he's the guy who does the really intensive television reviews and videos about calibration and like the best tech deals for Black Friday for 4K panels and stuff. But he is a professional calibrator, and he and some buddies did a upload talking about the HDR on the Disney Plus versions of Star Wars and The Mandalorian and stuff. And they were basically like, well, yeah, there is some HDR technically, but it's not really anything because it's basically the old Blu-ray masters. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they look as good as they do since they're the 2011 Blu-ray masters. But yeah, Disney has the ability to afford, whatever the best upmixer and the best processors are in the world. So, I'm sure they could make those Blu-rays, look like that because they have enough money to make them look, good enough for a streaming service. But it's not, true 4K. It's not true HDR. It's just, it's like, it's really, really, really spiffed up. So yeah, I mean, I'm at least glad that it seems like they tried to spiff them up some, but yeah, it's unfortunate that it's those versions, and they changed the Greedo scene yet again. And there's debate. It seems I don't know if it's something that happened while George was still in control and just hadn't been released, like they did it after the Blu-rays came out, or if it's something that happened once Disney took over. I don't know. But it's like, man, you had to make one more change. Seriously. So yeah, I was surprised they weren't just the Blu-ray slapped up there. I was just going to be the Blu-rays streaming. So I guess that's good in a way and bad in another way, if that makes sense. But they're still the Blu-ray masters, so take that for what you will. If I watch any special edition, it'll be the 97 special edition, and that mix is still beautiful. That was the last time the original trilogy sounded good. And outside of the super out there changes and the stuff they shouldn't have messed with, I mean, it's not as bad as the 2004 or 2011 versions. So, the 97 version is the one you can actually live with, even though it'll make you grit your teeth. But at least it sounds great, which the other versions do not, because they keep remixing the audio and messing it up even further. And it's like, it was a beautiful 5.1 mix in 1997. Why did you mess with it? But yeah, so if you want to watch the special edition, get the special edition 97 Laserdisc box set. That would be my nerdy answer, even though it's Laserdisc and you got to live with 420i and everything. It's a nice box set and it's got those amazing AC3 tracks and actually really nice picture quality too. It's not perfect, but it's actually a really nice Laserdisc presentation and doesn't have the problems of the old Definitive Collection box set. But of course, it's the 97 special edition with its own brand of changes that everybody hates. We almost got through the whole show without somebody bringing up the Star Wars Holiday Special. Now that it has been brought up, it's a rite of passage. Everybody should see it at least once and understand that this actually happened, and you cannot comprehend the level of WTF badness that the Star Wars Holiday Special is. And it's something that goes better unseen, really, but it also has a charm to it. The fact that, people taped it on, I guess, beta decks back in the day, and it's managed to survive. And there have been various fan attempts to do cleanups to like the only tape copies that float around the internet. So there are some really impressive fan cleanup versions out there that make it a lot more viewable. Because the first time I saw it, it was some upload on some website. I don't even know where it was. It was really terrible quality, which makes it even harder to sit through. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to sit through for like some of the little glimpses of deleted Star Wars footage, which admittedly there's like a few seconds here and there. And it starts with Harrison Ford and Peter Mayhew and the Millennium Falcon cockpit. And you're like, whoa, this is actually going somewhere. And then, it uses stock footage from Star Wars, but that's understandable. But it's new Han and Chewie dialogue. Oh my God, we got to get you home for Life Day. And then it starts to go downhill. And you're like, no. And then comes, the endless Wookiee babbling without any subtitles. And it continues to go into what in the world is this? It defies logic, but you have to. I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't dislike it. I have a certain affection for it in a weird way. I'm never going to watch it again, most likely, but you kind of have to like it in some strange way, especially as a big Star Wars fan. It's part of the history. It's a joke everybody knows, but it's still fun to joke about because it's that bad. And if you've seen it, it's like, it's a form of reference card. You can commiserate with people, be like, "Hey, you remember the Harvey Corbin sketch in the Star Wars Holiday Special? Oh my God, you remember time? Yeah, you remember when Chewie's uncle like started the hologram thing, and then basically you realized it was like Wookiee space porn. Yeah. Oh God, that was terrible. Yeah, who dreamed that up? Remember when it randomly cut to Jefferson Starship? Why did that happen? Or remember when it had the really bad matte painting of Kashyyyk and the tree houses? Oh God. You remember when the Wookiees talked for 20 minutes with no subtitles? Oh. You remember when Carrie Fisher started to sing with like 20 pounds of makeup on her face? Oh. Remember when Chewie came out in a long red robe and all the Wookiees started making noises? Oh. It's like, guys, you made Jaxon the green rabbit character from the Marvel comics actually look logical. Like, I don't know how you did it, but yeah. And it's really fun to like read about the people who made it. They were like, yeah, we were under a time crunch, and it was like George gave us like a general direction and then said, yeah, it's fine, whatever. It seems fine. And then we literally had to throw this thing together, and none of us knew what was going to happen. And then it came out, and we were all like, what have we done? Oh, low budget fanfic. Yeah, a low budget fanfic made for television but shown in prime time in 1978. Yeah. And every kid convinced their parents to turn it on because they were in Star Wars fever, and it had been a year since they'd seen Star Wars, and they were so excited, and they sat there glued to the screen just because it had Star Wars on it. It didn't matter what happened, and their parents were behind them in complete shock and horror. Like, some parents probably turned it off and like pulled their screaming kids away, and they were probably like, "But it's Star Wars." They're like, "You're not watching this terror." Yeah, I just like to picture what the reaction was in every family home in America in 1978. Probably the same reaction of children when they got the early bird Kenner box for Christmas that year in 1977, and they were so excited, and they rip open the wrapping on Christmas morning, and they see the Star Wars box, and they're literally just crying with joy, and then they open it and find it's an empty box because they hadn't made the figures, because they didn't know the movie was going to be successful, and it was a smaller company, so they could sell you an empty box for being an early bird, and then you could just write in your name and information and mail the card, and then wait like 3-6 months or whatever it was, and wait for them to mail you the first 4 figures, so then you could put them on your little empty box stand. So then you could take your box and fold out the back, and it was a stand for your figures that you didn't have and did not exist because they hadn't been made. And you could just put it on your shelf in your room and look at it for like half a year until your figures came. Yeah, so I think kids had a lot more of a, let's just say they were a lot more sturdy emotionally than I think kids would be today. Because can you imagine that happening today? First of all, they get that as a holiday special, and their toys on Christmas was just an empty box. Yeah, you had to use your imagination back in the 70s. I think worst of all was the first lightsaber toy, which was literally an inflatable balloon. And you had the tube that went to the little pump, and you turned it on, and it went like, and it just blew up this really sickly yellow looking lightsaber balloon. You'd sit there and do them back and forth, and then like one hit, you popped it, and it was gone, and you killed your lightsaber balloon. Thankfully they finally started making the plastic ones after that, but that I think that is a historical toy. I would love to actually see one in person, but it's such a goofy thing. You really had to use your imagination with. The hurt they went through must have been immeasurable. I was forever scarred in 1978 by the Star Wars Holiday Special.
I can't look at anything relating to the Star Wars Holiday Special. I get PTSD flashbacks. Still, I suddenly see Mark Hamill's face looking like he has the world's worst spray tan due to the bad makeup and lighting. Like, I think I can't remember. I'm pretty sure Carrie Fisher talked about it once, and I think she said something to the effect of she was kind of glad she didn't remember doing it because she was, shall we say, under the influence of certain substances during that period of her life. So she was very glad she didn't really remember it. And if you watch the holiday special, you can kind of see that, particularly when she has to start singing and she has like this really glassy eyed look. And with all of this like 10 coats of spray tan looking makeup on her face, and she's just like, and she's like, and you're just like, she's not really there. Like, she's there in person, but mentally, it's like she's already gone. Like she can't even live through this. Oh gosh, if Twitter had existed then, oh man, it wouldn't have just blown up. Like the network would have literally had to pull the feed. Like it just, oh man. Used to have a toy lightsaber in battle. Yes. Oh man, I'll admit, in terms of toys, I still have most of my old Star Wars collection. It's not really anything rare. It's all of the, more modern 90s and beyond mass produced stuff. But I always liked getting the they always called it the role play toys, but so lightsabers, blasters, Chewie's bowcaster, things like that. I always liked getting that stuff and getting the vehicles, which, there were a lot less than the action figures. So I still have most of my old plastic lightsabers, and they've gone through, they went through many different revisions, and they've made a couple more like fancy ones and more expensive ones, but they're still basically the same old plastic design. And it's ironic, they can, with all of this advancement in technology, they can't make a realistic looking hilt that can have the plastic blade retract fully into it and then, spring back out and have all the electronic effects and stuff and actually work. And it finally looked like they were going to do it. Like they did a new Luke lightsaber from, I think it was about a year or two ago. And I saw a review on YouTube and I was like, wait, Hasbro finally made a lightsaber that's electronic and the hilt looks right and accurate and it retracts and springs out and it's affordable? No, it can't be. And literally the reviewer was like, I can't believe this. It actually works. And then he went to retract it. And as he retracted it, it broke. And he's like, and this goes with the other ones, So yeah, they still can't do that. So in a lot of ways, the best ones are the little cheapy costume ones you buy at Walmart for $5 that have like the generic Phantom Menace Obi-Wan handle with just like colored plastic, and you can flick them out, and they have an actual belt clip. And because they're cheap and they're pretty thick plastic on the blades, you can literally just give them to a kid and they can just hit it against the wall and it'll last for like a week or two. So yeah, those are still like a good standby go-to if you need to do your lightsaber battling, because you have to at some point. But yeah, I still wish somebody would make like a really good fun lightsaber that's not like a full-on replica. And there are really amazing fan replicas out there that are usually better than the official ones that I want to say I can't remember if it's called Sloth Furnace or something, but it's something Furnace. It's a guy who literally started making replicas, I think, in his garage and works with the metal himself and makes these amazing full-scale replicas, but obviously just of the hilt. And then there's like the Master Replicas FX lightsabers that, make all the sounds and light up, but you have a plastic blade with phosphorus in it, and you just wave it around. But if you hit it against anything, well, there goes my $200 lightsaber. But, it was fun while it lasted. So yeah, there's nothing that can do everything. It's just a cheap plastic toy or a bunch of things that don't work or really cool replicas you put on a shelf. So, it's 2019. We don't have a working lightsaber yet. Come on. You would think by now, in the year of Blade Runner, we could have a lightsaber. Like, flying cars is one thing, but, a lightsaber should be much more practical, right? One can dream, right? Disney version of the holiday special. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what that would be. That would just be. Well, no, actually, now that I say that, I'm sure if they were still really pushing the Disney Channel, and now that they have Star Wars, I'm surprised they didn't do like a 90-minute Disney Channel Star Wars show or something. So now that I've said that, they'll probably get the idea. But yeah, that would be, they could totally do their own holiday special. um, oh, Greg still has his Darth Maul saber. Yeah, I still actually have mine. It was the and it's actually a pretty good toy. The double blades actually work. The hilt works, and it's nice and long. It's got that staff feel. And honestly, the Phantom Menace toy sabers were probably actually, if I'm perfectly honest, I think they were probably the sturdiest and the ones that lasted the longest, because I still have that one. I have my Qui-Gon one. I have the Obi-Wan one. I told you I liked the lightsabers. I still have like a big plastic storage bin, and it's literally got nothing but like my 15 or 20 toy lightsabers in it. But yeah, those are the ones that they still work perfectly. The blades didn't break off, and but the first ones had the battery issues, so they had to recall them. And then the Darth Maul one was the one where it didn't light up, but it had a actual photo flash inside. So when you hit it, it would flash the blade, and then you'd literally hear the camera flash recharging. So you could sit there and hit it against the wall, and it would like flash, and then you'd hear it recharging, and then it would finally flash again. But it actually worked. And so as a kid, you could have a double bladed lightsaber. And if they have to remake one for like if they did like a toy for the Fallen Order game, which I think you can get a double bladed saber in that, they could just reuse the molds for that, because it works. Start a lightsaber collection again. It's funny how much all this stuff starts to come out. Like, somebody mentioned Star Wars, and I mentioned the early bird toy box, and all of a sudden I'm talking about my old lightsaber collection. Yeah, see, I still have all of my I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't open most of my stuff. So most of it I kept boxed. I have my Star Wars closet, and I just picked up things here and there. But everybody always would tell you, "Oh, this is worth a lot of money," because they were thinking about the 70s toys. So I still have all of my stuff. It's about 7 or 8 big boxes in storage, and I don't really want to part with it, because it's not worth a whole lot, and I don't just want to give it away for nothing, because if I tried to trade it somewhere, I wouldn't get much for it. But I haven't really found like a collector who wants it, who knows what it's worth, and won't lowball me on it. But also I kind of hate the idea of parting with it, even though it's literally just all been boxed up for a number of years. But yeah, they don't really build the toys like they used to. Like, they're either intended for adult collectors, or the sculpts aren't very good. And, it's like, what kid can afford a Star Wars action figure for $12? It's like, no, it's not, it doesn't work. They're not really made for kids anymore. But yeah, I still love I still have my bowcaster and my Han blaster on my top of some of my shelves, because they're pretty screen accurate, and they're really cool, and they don't make those anymore. So, I've got a DL-44 prop if I need it. Of course, it's painted orange because it was made in the 90s, when they were like, kids can't have toy guns painted orange. But oh gosh, most expensive Star Wars toy. That seems to change every once in a while, but it's pretty much going to be stuff that was one off or rare, or the most valuable of the original Kenner line, like the vinyl cape Jawa, the Darth Vader with the long saber, I think it is. The weird oddities and the really rare stuff of the stuff that wasn't mass produced. So I think it was always the vinyl cape Jawa was the rarest one when I was growing up. It was because most people didn't buy the Jawa because it was half the size. It didn't come in with any accessories. It wasn't a main character, so it was harder to find later on. And then the first ones had a vinyl cape. So then they switched to a cloth cape, I guess, because it was cheaper to manufacture. So the vinyl cape Jawa is like the rarest variant of the hardest to find original figure. And I always heard that it would sell for like 2,000, 5,000, whatever. But now I think it got superseded by the Darth Vader figure that had, because the original figures had the sabers in the arms, and they look like little candles. So the figure, it literally is like this, and it comes out, and the Luke and Obi-Wan figures have yellow sabers because Kenner was like, yellow, who needs blue? And then the Vader one had like this pinkish red. It literally looks like a birthday candle because it has a little like piece of fabric at the end, but it comes out of the telescopes out of his arm, and then you move the arm like this. And my favorite part of the last time I got dragged to Disney World was not that they opened Galaxy's Edge, because I kind of looked at that and I'm like, this makes me sad. My favorite part of going to Disney World the last time is that in the Star Wars gift shop, for the section that they actually had some of the original models and things, they had a life-size reproduction of the 1978 Kenner Darth Vader, complete with the telescoping pink lightsaber, and I literally had a complete fanboy moment, and no one had any idea what I was talking about. And I'm like, it's the 1978 Kenner Darth Vader, and it's 6 feet tall! How much is this? I don't need it, but tell me how much it is just so I know, because I would love to have this thing, even though I have no use for it. Oh, it's not for sale? Okay, thank you. But yeah, if you go to that particular gift shop in Disney World, they have a life-size 78 Kenner Darth Vader, which is really cool. But anyway, long story short, I think that one topped the record. I think that sold for like almost $11,000. I could be wrong. It could have changed since then. I used to have the old collector guidebook, which I used to love to flip through just to see all these things from like other countries and stuff like that. And it would like list the estimated value, and I'm like, my figures were $25, and then I would see like in perfect condition. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a collector's book. Of course I can have that stuff. Yeah. And if you had toys as a kid and you actually use them, they either get broken or thrown away, or some kid never brings them back, or they get lost, or stuff like that. And then later on, you're like, these are worth what? What have I done? Yeah, I have to go to a vintage novelty shop to get a good price. Yeah. Actually, they're not super expensive, but I am seeing like even some of the 90s stuff starting to creep up in price, simply because it's older and vintage now, and it's Star Wars. But most shops usually are pretty good on pricing, and of course the vintage stuff is it's going to be loose figures. If it's carded figures, it's going to be a lot more. But you can get most of the figures loose. Sometimes with accessories for a couple bucks a figure. It's not bad if you just want the figures. But I really stopped collecting Star Wars toys. Really, I'm in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and I picked up a couple of the Episode 3 toys, but that was about it. So yeah, it's just I haven't really bought anything since then. That's kind of the time I got out of it. But I always like looking at what they do and like seeing when they reuse old molds, and if they're actually going to make an improved version, or something that I wish I had when I was a kid. So I like reading that, and I like looking at some toy reviews here and there. So it's at least I think it's fun to see some of that stuff. Let's see. Oh, Ronald met all but George and Harrison Ford. Oh, wow. So did you do I guess you did the convention rounds and met most of everybody? I know a lot of people will try and collect, all the autographs, and then it's like, they have everybody but like one. It's like, man, I've got every picture autographed, but I don't have an autographed picture of Admiral Piet, man. If I could just get that one photo, man, I'd be complete on my Empire Strikes Back autograph collection. But yeah, I know some people are like really religious about like trying to get everybody's autograph, and I'm like, man, it'd be amazing to just meet some of them, but I wouldn't even know what to say other than just like because those things are always awkward, whether it's at a convention or just actually running into people, and you just try to be as little awkward as possible. Okay, yeah, at conventions, okay, and got the let's see, got the choke by Vader, so that would be probably, I guess, Admiral Ozzel maybe, or Captain Nita. I don't know which one that would be, but one of those. And oh, you got Dennis Lawson's autograph. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I'm a big Wedge fan. I played way too much Rogue Squadron and read some Rogue Squadron comics and read the books. So I love Rogue Squadron. So yeah, huge Wedge fan. Yeah, totally. Possibly the most underrated character in the original trilogy. Survived both Death Star runs and the Battle of Hoth, and nobody knows his name. And I'm like, oh, come on. It's like he's in every movie. He survived everything. He's the second best pilot in the Alliance because he doesn't have force abilities. So he's technically the best pilot in the Alliance on pure ability alone. And then, Poe in the new films is the hotshot pilot of the Rebel Alliance. And I'm like, oh, heck no. This dude has nothing on Wedge Antilles, man. Like, I bet Wedge is retired somewhere. And he's like having a bunch of drinks with Scott from Star Trek, and they're just swapping war stories. Because if the real Wedge was here, man, this would be all over. And he'd do it all with one X-Wing with 3 bad engines and missing 2 S-foils. And he'd still like just totally own everything. And everybody would be like, whoa. Like, yeah, that's Rogue Squadron, man. Sorry. I couldn't resist. I love Wedge. Yeah. Poe is a cheap knockoff Han Wedge Antilles wannabe. It's like if we go down, if we go to the list of the rankings of the strengths of all of those who have flown for the Rebel Alliance, whether in Rogue Squadron or not, you have the guys that made it. You have Luke. You have Wedge. You have the unfortunates who were killed in the line of duty. So you have Gold Leader and Red Leader and Zev and Hobby and Hutch and all the guys. And then you have Dak. He tried. He felt like he could take on the whole empire himself, and unfortunately was not able to do so. Then you have the pilots who didn't have a name in the movie, like John D was the unnamed pilot killed in Star Wars. He was named in the novelization. So you have those, and then at the very bottom you have this Poe guy, because he's just like, it's like, dude, you're not Han, you're not Wedge. Like, stop trying. You just don't even. Sorry, that's me being snarky. Yes, I don't. I even like the unnamed pilot John D in Star Wars, who just literally dies in the Battle of Yavin and is not even named in the movie. Better than okay. Let's put it this way. It's a versus match. Okay, Poe versus Porkins. No contest. Porkins is the man. He's like, it's Porkins. He has such a personality, and you don't even know anything about him other than he's Porkins. And he's the same actor in Raiders of the Lost Ark and so many other things throughout the 1980s, so automatically Porkins wins. Brian met Leonard Nimoy at a convention. Never Star Wars guest. Yeah. Oh, man. It'd be cool to be anybody, but yeah, I wouldn't know what to do. I never do. The few times I've met people, it's cool enough to meet people. I try to not, babble, but I try to come up with at least something interesting to say, or so that I'm like, not like I'm a true fan, here's a membership card, but like something substantial, so it's not just the I love your work so much, but also not to sound all high and mighty, and autographs are cool and photos are cool, but it's just it's good enough for me to actually meet the person and say thank you so much, it's so nice to meet you, and I'm trying not to be too awkward. Yeah, exactly, stay on target. But yeah, it would be really cool to meet Mark Hamill. It really would. Until a couple years ago, I'd never really quite realized that he's as geeky as the rest of us, and it's glorious, and it only gets better with age. And I'm always mad that he's not in, as much, in terms of like major, spotlight acting performances, because he's really, really great. But yeah, and of course, if you met Harrison, it would just be great, even if he just gave you I just woke out of bed this morning and I'm really grumpy, just the stare, and it's like, I got the stare, man. It's great. Oh gosh, yeah, I would totally, I would shrink to this small. Um, yeah, it is very not to hard not to fanboy. Um, yeah, it would be very hard not to just go into a million questions and like just tons of my weird impressions and quotations and stuff. Like if I met Harrison Ford, I always thought it'd be really cool if yeah, I'd always thought it'd be really cool if, I would, if we could actually talk about Han Solo seriously, because, we all know he likes playing Indiana Jones more. And, we get it. He came back for Force Awakens so they could kill him off. Okay, we get it. We get it. We get it. But Han is great. And you brought so much to it that was lovely. And I always would really have wanted if like it was an interview situation or something, it'd be like, yes, Mr. Ford. Before we finish, could you do me a big favor? Could you read this line from Brian Daly's Han Solo at Star's End, please, just in your best, action movie tagline, a one-liner voice? Thank you. Because I've always wondered what it would sound like if Harrison Ford said some of the Brian Daly Han Solo dialogue. That would just be amazing. I'd also fanboy if I met any of the radio drama cast. Like I love Perry King's Han Solo from the radio drama, so that would be super fanboy as well. If I ever met John Lithgow, I would be like, oh my god, I loved your Yoda. You have no idea how much your Yoda is amazing. And he's like, I tell that as a trivia fact. Because he does. His Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back and the radio drama is just fantastic, and it's so strange that he's doing Yoda, but it's great. But yeah, that would be the level of my fanboy. Like I would get fanboy out of meeting cast and crew, and fanboy out of meeting cast and crew of the radio drama, and if more of the original crews of the original trilogy were still with us, I would totally fanboy, like meeting John Barry or meeting, and quite a number are still with us. Like it'd be amazing to meet John Dykstra. It'd be amazing to meet Dennis Muren. It'd be amazing to meet Phil Tippett, and it's just like all of these names that I grew up just like revering, and like the real hardcore, in the original ILM garage workshop in Van Nuys in the parking lot, and gluing the model kits together and trying to get the Dykstra Flex to work and all that stuff. And it's just like, those were the days, man. not to give it the whole hippie vibe, but yeah, I would totally fanboy. Totally. Be the same thing meeting Doug Trumbull, it'd be like, oh my God. And like you're the only person, and you're like, there's 10 people in line to meet Doug Trumbull, and you're like sitting there fanboying so hard, and like the line next to you is like 10 million people lined up to meet Shatner, or 10 million people lined up to meet Harrison Ford, and you're like just as excited because you're meeting Doug Trumbull, and you're like, oh my god. So anyway, my fanboy interests, or shall we say, varied. Well, with that lovely side quest, wow, we did crack 3 hours, so I feel pretty good. We cracked 3 hours, not bad. This just this is about the runtime I was kind of shooting for originally with my live streams. It quickly exploded into just like 5 and 6 hour marathons. So I feel better. I'm like, I have some energy. My throat is not completely shot. I'm not totally cramped over because I've been sitting in my desk chair for 6 hours. So yeah, this is kind of more the time slot I'm shooting for. So, but if a marathon happens, it'll happen. That's fine too. You need some of those every once in a while. But yeah, just so I guess that'll do it for this lovely evening. Thanks to everybody for popping in and hanging out and letting me ramble on about some interesting Christmas choices and alternative Christmas movie ideas, and the absolutely incredible new Who album. Gotta mention that again. It's a really amazing record for this time period. It's I'm not being paid. I'm not plugging it, but it would make a great holiday gift because it is perfect for this time of year. Really, they couldn't have released it at a better time of year. So it's really great if you haven't heard it, whether you're a Who fan or not. It's a really good album. Like I said, all the songs are actually really solid. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. And if you got any other Christmas ideas for movies and stuff, feel free to comment once this is posted and stuff. I'm always interested in hearing screwy, off the wall, different ideas that aren't necessarily the accepted topic for that particular time of year. And then, like I said before, next week, hopefully I'll get something up and get a thumbnail made and get everything set up. But about same time next week on Tuesday night, I'll be talking about the Frank Capra classics. Pretty much starting with It Happened One Night and running up through It's a Wonderful Life, and talking about Capra and some of his his overall career path and style, and World War II intervening, and then the phenomenal talents he was able to work with, and the writing partnerships he forged with Robert Riskin and others that really helped form the whole notion of the what came to be known as the Capricorn style. So and also be talking about his autobiography and some of the other really great books on Capra and stuff like that. So that'll be next week, and then that'll probably be it for this year, because of course the next Tuesday is Christmas Eve, and people probably don't want to be live streaming on Christmas Eve. So because people have holiday plans. You don't just stick yourself in front of a webcam. It's like, all right, guys, hang on. I'm gonna go talking to my webcam for a couple hours. Is that okay? Okay. I'll bring some hot chocolate in here. Yeah, and then hopefully I'll get something. I don't know, because it'll be New Year's right after that, but sometime around there, and get some more stream action in. So in any case, thanks for hanging out, everybody, tonight. It's been a lovely stream, a lot more manageable in runtime. So that's good, I guess. And as always, have a better one, everybody.